This is David Goldie, the World Wrestling Grand Prix Champion, and you're listening to the Alliance Guys Podcast.
This is Lois Brain here, and I'm advising you to do yourself a favor and watch the Alliance Guys Podcast.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, the United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Bobby.
Building an alliance.
Will you join us?
It's showtime.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
You're not here, you missing out, because this show...
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, listen up. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
It's time for the Alliance Guys Podcast.
That's our cue. Welcome to the Alliance Guys Podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your premier source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J-Cal. This gentleman right here, his name is DKM. We are the Alliance Guys. And every Thursday, we come to you, almost every Thursday, we come to you to talk a little wrestling, talk a little NWA wrestling. And DK is a little distracted. I think he's what's going on, DK? You good?
Yeah, someone's talking to me. Hold on just a minute.
Okay. Well then, beat it. I can do this myself. I don't need nobody. Anyways, guys, this is the Alliance Guys live stream podcast. We are here each and every Thursday, again, to talk a little bit of NWA. We'll be joined momentarily by Mr. Jordynne of, he works for Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, but on Thursday night, he's so kind to join us here to talk some NWA. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving pieces in the world of wrestling right now, and a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors, a lot of innuendos, a lot of announcements. What did you think of this week's announcement from the NWA? We'll talk about it. But, the whole point of this week's show is who's got next? Who has got next? I mean, obviously, the NWA, the announcement, a little bit lackluster. We knew there will be 2 cage matches in Dothan, Alabama as part of the Looks at Kill pay-per-view, signature live event, however you want to call it. We knew that was coming. But we didn't know how quickly that was going to get here. And we knew that the announcement was made by William Patrick Corgan on the conclusion of this week's Power, that the match would be a steel cage match between EC3 and the world's heavyweight champion, Thom Latimer. But my question that I'm going to pose to both of you gentlemen, and I hope that you in the chat will join us in this discussion, is who's got next? After this situationship is resolved between EC3 and Thomas Latimer, where does the NWA go after that storyline? Because, I mean, this has been an ongoing saga, episodic romance between Ethan and Thomas for quite some time. And really, there is no end in sight. But I think at some point, the NWA is going to have to move on from the storyline. We're going to have to crown a new number 1 contender. Obviously, that's something that has been something. Man, my phone's blowing up. I must have pissed somebody off from the office. They are having this tournament that took place back on last Saturday to crown a new number 1 contender. We don't know where that's going to lead to. We don't know how that's going to pan out, but obviously the NWA 2 is looking to move on from this Tom and EC3 situationship. So my question I pose to both you gentlemen is, what's next? Who's next? And where does the 10 pounds of gold go from here?
Real quick, I hope the person you pissed off from the office wasn't Creed.
Yeah, he's out for blood.
Yeah, I'd worry about if he pissed off Creed. But I was actually looking through. I was having trouble sleeping the other night, so I actually looked up the current NWA roster. And there's some good talent on there that has a lot of potential to be something if it had proper booking, I think you could really build some good contenders. Honestly, you could build some good contenders in multiple different divisions in the NWA, but the World Heavyweight title specifically, I think right now there's a couple good possibilities. Thrill Billy is definitely top of my list, and they should be working everything they can to get him ready to be a future star. If done right, I think Mike Mondo can actually be somebody special. I think, again, if done right, who is the current national champion? I just lost his name. Mims, yeah. I think Mims could actually be built up if done right. He's got something special that I never think that, even though it's still hard for me to take him serious now because of the loss to the TV title when he lost it to
Maxie Impaler.
Yeah, that person, Maxie Impaler. I still having trouble taking it seriously, but he has something. Honestly, some of the top NWA guys need to go away for a little bit and then come back with a new hold, a new look, and maybe a new manager, something new. But there's a lot of people in the NWA, but right now those two have the biggest upside. Those three, I guess, have the biggest upside without having to completely revamp everything in the NWA. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of get that. DK, what are your thoughts on the 10 pounds of gold and what's going on and what's next for it?
Well, I suppose it depends on how it actually ends between Latimer and EC3.
Okay.
I'm not 100% convinced it's done yet.
Nor am I.
And so, does it end with EC3 regaining the title? A lot of people seem to think that's going to be the case. Does Latimer keep the title and move on to a new challenger? A lot of people want that to be the case. And, where the title ends up kind of helps say, well, then who should be challenging for it? Assuming you keep a dynamic of tweenerness of EC3, who's more on the heel side, and tweenerness of Latimer, who's more on the face side, you might make a difference in who the challenger is going to be, So I don't know. You're talking about the big announcement, and there was some discussion on it on the board. And boy, I would almost give the NWA credit. The shows we're watching now were filmed before any of their last three signature live events, and they're filling in like 3 or 4 episodes in between events. And it's like, we've asked them to, have like a prolonged story, and they're having one. I just can't enjoy it. And
now, is that a detriment to us? Like, are we the problem here? Because we did ask for that. We asked for a week-to-week storyline that progressed and that it built up somebody. And I don't know that you could say it built anybody up, but obviously, the story between EC3 and Thom Latimer has been going on for years, to be quite honest. But for the 10 pounds of gold, at least since the 76th anniversary show.
Yeah, the problem is, and then I'll let Jayden chime in on it. The problem for me is they did this thing where they made a big announcement, and of course the big announcement was the steel cage match for a show that's already happened, that for a main event that we already knew. And for and with a result that we probably already know. And, you know, you have some people, oh, well, you know, I don't look for spoilers, and I don't, you know, look in my just daily life of following wrestling. I get these things. Hell, there are spoilers on their own website that they use to promote this. It's not my responsibility to stay ignorant, even ignorant of the NWA's websites and what they're saying, to follow, you know, so that maybe I can follow this better and be more enjoyable. Now, I will say I like EC3 as champion. I don't like him so much as a challenger. And one of his problems that I had both as champion and as challenger is he bores the shit out of me when he talks. I mean,
I'm sorry. Who bores the shit out of you? Okay.
EC3 bores me when he talks. I find nothing exciting about it. And so he's not a Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes or in some way, or Michael Hayes, Jimmy Garvin, Kerry Von Erich even. Kerry wasn't very good. But, you know, Kerry could at least get the crowds into, you know, his bowling along thing. Of course, David was good. Kevin was terrible. But even Kevin could get the crowds in. And it's just, God, EC3 bores me so much. But, so to me, there are two problems. When we're saying give us consistent stories week to week and whatever, but one, we want build. We want something. Two, it's still got to be enjoyable. And three, get your freaking schedule back to where it makes sense. You know, instead of having a Christmas tree at your, you know, Halloween show or whatever. I don't know. Jordynne?
I like EC3. I agree with he's probably better as champion. I think he could use a Bobby Heenan right now to get him to another level. I mean, it'd be great to have another Bobby Heenan in his world, honestly. But I do think he needs somebody right now in his to be his leader, and I definitely don't mean Austin Idol. You know, it's funny. Austin Idol has been known for just being unreliable and disappearing for long periods of time and just going away and not showing up, and yet he still can't go away from the NWA, and it's kind of starting to annoy me. I honestly, though, I think right now, out of the two, Latimer and EC3 is a little bit better in terms of leading the NWA. I don't see Latimer right now really doing anything that elevates him or the NWA title, and it's just probably maybe bad luck or maybe just random, who knows why. But I've never seen the NWA title elevate Latimer right now. He's not Ricky Steamboat or Dusty Rhodes, who used the reign to get themselves bigger. He's more Ron Garvin. And again, I don't blame Ron Garvin on that either, but I do blame the booking in Ron Garvin. I kind of blame the booking in John Latimer. They just need something right now to make this special, and I'm glad that they're doing some kind of build-up. I haven't seen it. I don't watch it. The NWA, I kind of seen, yeah, he does lack enthusiasm. He just doesn't have that. He doesn't have that, like, he really is excited to be champion, and I've never seen it. Didn't see him winning it. I loved his outfit when he won it. That was the closest he got to any kind of personality, I think, is that new outfit he wore at the 76. He needs something more. And I do think EC3 needs something more too. But right now, if I had to choose between the two, I would choose EC3 to lead the NWA. But boy, I wish there was some good booking to really build a bunch of people in his challenge and give him something to work with and give maybe somebody to work with him.
You know, the thing we talk about all the time with the NWA is consistent storytelling, right? Booking. It's something I've been screaming about for months now, or wins and losses, they should be relevant. I don't feel like I want to like Thom Latimer as champion because it's somebody that I want to like. He's been around, and I don't feel like this is like an honorary award because you've been around longer than anybody else. I really feel like Thom Latimer could have been the guy, but what's been pointed out from a couple different people is like, what was the plan for Tom? And if the plan was always just more EC3, I don't feel like you did him any favors. We said this about Nick Aldis when he lost the title, and then they beat him with an inch of his life, and he was supposed to go away. And he literally was on TV a few weeks later, like, I can't miss you if you don't go away. And EC3 is like, look, I feel like he's the right guy for the NWA. I feel like there's a lot of positive about EC3, but he shouldn't have been the first guy on a pay-per-view to challenge, or signature live event, to challenge Thom Latimer. And if you're going to make him the first guy, he sure as hell shouldn't be the second guy, let alone the third guy. I mean, he should have taken that loss and disappeared. And I'm not saying he needs to leave the NWA. I'm not saying that you don't ever book him again, but he doesn't need to be on Power. Remember, Ethan Carter III is a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He's a former NXT guy. I mean, he's well known. He's world renowned. I don't think he needs to be on Power for him to stay relevant, right? But he does need, the fans need a break. And I think ultimately what would inspire his character and create a little bit more excitement is if he did go away for a while. The problem with all of that though, is they still have a lack of credible challengers. And again, we can't blame Thom Latimer for the lack of credible challengers. It's squarely on the booking committee, aka William Patrick Corgan. If he told stories that built people up, like this week was a perfect example of that. And we'll talk about Power later in the show, but DK, this was one of my favorite episodes of Power in a long time. You know what we got on this episode? Some character development. We got wins and losses that mattered. Mr. Grimm is a guy who doesn't necessarily need to be getting wins to gain some credibility. He had a really good match with Silas Mason. And you know what? Silas Mason, it was a struggle to beat Mr. Grimm, but he got the victory. And it's the victories like that are what you're going to gain credibility for Silas Mason. And if he's ever going to be the guy to challenge Tom or challenge EC3, he needs to have some more consistent victories like this. We didn't need Southern Six to come run down and make an interference. We didn't need a time limit draw. Mr. Grimm came out, looked fantastic. Like there wasn't like perfect, but he had a pretty good match. And with Silas Mason, the Thrillbilly beating Mr. Grimm, it made Thrillbilly Silas Mason more credible. And I feel like it's simple. It's a simple equation. There's so many guys on this roster who are not destined to challenge for the 10 pounds of gold, who are not primed to be in the main event or even on the mid card. Let those guys eat some losses. We don't need 50-50 booking. We don't need, guys getting over who we don't see on Power regularly. Let these guys show up, take a loss, and put them back down on the roster and build up some of these guys that you currently have. How far off am I on that, Jordynne? I mean, you've helped out with booking in multiple promotions. How far off am I on this?
The problem right now, and this is a problem with a lot of professional wrestling, less the WWE now than before, but it definitely was a problem. There's not a lot of actual stars. People that feel like larger than life, feel like that they're important, feel like that if they stand out, they're in a crowd, you recognize them, or that you can at least tell they're somebody. And the problem, a lot of that is too many people are having competitive matches when there shouldn't be. And too many people are giving people too much that they shouldn't be giving them. Excuse me. And another problem is right now is the sport of professional wrestling is taking a back seat for the entertainment of professional wrestling. There needs to be, right now in the NWA especially, there needs to be somebody you identify as NWA guys that you can look and go, that guy's a future, that guy can be a star anywhere, that guy is a very great talent. It could be ladies too, ladies also. But that there isn't a lot of that right now. And even the guys that they're trying to make seem like that, like Latimer and EC3, they're just not being presented right, and they're just not showing that ability to be that big, huge star that they can put the huge spotlight on. And even the wrestlers that have the ability to do so, like Silas Mason and others on the roster, they're just not really properly putting that spotlight right on them and giving them what they need to look like stars. Okay.
What's the
DK,
number one thing they need?
Okay, DK, you were just on mute. I was letting you know.
He said, what was the number one thing that the NWA needs?
Right now? Good booking. But they need...
Well, I mean, what do we do to make somebody a star, and taking for granted that it's good booking? I mean, I feel like one of the problems we have, and then I'll let you answer the question I'm asking you. I feel like one of the problems we have is that we don't want, not everything should be a clean victory, but then all feuds should end kind of with like a clean victory, or, you know, even if it's a specialty match or something. And I always think back to, I remember so well when Diamond Dallas Page got elevated into like the main event thing, and it was a feud with Randy Savage. And he was facing Randy Savage. Savage was taking about 60% of the match. And then at the end, Page got the win. It wasn't a fluke win, but it was kind of a roll-up win, you know, that type of deal. And so then they had a second match, and which was pretty even. And Savage, I think, got some kind of, you know, screw the babyface victory. And so then they had the third match, and they went at it, and they tore the place down, and it finally ended with DDP getting the clean victory. Now, before that, you would say DDP was a solid mid-carder. After that, and watching him work Savage, you would go, wow, that DDP is really good. I can see, you know, I can see him challenging for the world title now as a legit contender. Whether he ever should have won the title or not, it's another story, but, you know, you can see that. And so, I mean, is the NWA missing that? Is there something we're all missing? You know, what makes a star?
To start off, you need one person to be over. At least. You need one person to be over. And I don't mean the over, man. I mean actually over. The fans behind them or despising them. And not the kind of despising them of like Hulk Hogan go away heat. I mean like despising them like I want to watch you get really seriously maimed heat. So they either need to be super over as a babyface or super over as a heel. And then use that person to create another star. And that's what Savage was great for. Savage was great for a lot of things. People really underestimate how important he was to WCW. They give a lot of credit to Hogan and the NWO, but the WCW's real rise to prominence actually started with Randy Savage versus Ric Flair. The house shows were hot for that. The feud was hot for that. The pay-per-view was hot for that. And they went a lot of good places into that. That actually started the ascension to WCW, and people don't really pay attention to that. And Savage was good for that a lot. Savage had a great match with Bret Hart one time that elevated Bret Hart. And this was when Savage was world champion, and Bret Hart, I think, was still a heel. And he had a match with Bret Hart that elevated Bret Hart to people start paying attention to who he was. He had a match with Razor Ramon to elevate Razor Ramon and had a good feud with him. He elevated a lot of people. People really don't pay attention to that. But the thing is, Savage had an aura. Savage had a personality. Savage had in-ring skills. And most importantly, Savage was over. And he was also not selfish. So because of that, he elevated people, and that's what the NWA needs. They need somebody who has an aura, who has a personality, who can wrestle in the ring, and can be a star and not be selfish. And then what you could do from when you have two people over, you could use those two people, bless you, yawn, I'm sorry. Oh, crap.
Early morning.
Two other people over. And then you use those 4 people to get 4 other people over. Now you got 8 people over, and now you have 8 matches that you could potentially care about.
Now, Rosville hit a good point, and I kind of tend to agree with this, is that requires the it factor and some producing. And I mean, when we look at the NWA roster currently, if we're going to dissect this thing and say, okay, what can the 3 of us do? How can we save this? How can we, rectify what we find wrong with the NWA? It sounds like this is an outside hire. I don't feel like there's somebody on the roster right now who could elevate the talent that way. There is no Macho Man Randy Savage on this roster. And I'm a huge Savage fan too, by the way. So I second the love for him. But they don't have anyone even close to Savage.
Well, there's another way to go.
PK?
Yeah, there's another way to go.
Sure.
And I think this was the way of, Jay's favorite wrestler, 5-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion Adam Pearce.
Favorite?
Hey, you want me to tell him that he's not your favorite? No. So, here's the thing. When Pearce first won the title, a lot of people go, I remember this on the message board. Pearce, he's just some mid-card guy from ROH. A lower mid-card of that, because he was working in a gatekeeper role at that time.
Yeah, he sure was.
And, okay. And I remember in his first title reign, just a few months in, he defended the title here in Dallas at a show that more or less bombed. And I was listening to some local guys who were talking about it. And one of the first things they said was, Pearce just doesn't feel like a world champion. And at the time, they were probably right. But Pearce had 2 things going for him. Pearce had a charisma to him.
Sure.
And there are different types of charisma. Harley Race had a charisma to him. Ric Flair had a charisma to him. They were all different. Dusty Rhodes. And some of you go, well, yeah, obvious. But, like Harley Race was, his was a subtle one. And, Race had a way of getting things and people over that you can't imagine. On Georgia Championship Wrestling, after he had lost and regained the NWA title from Tommy Rich, he and somebody else were teaming against Rich and somebody else, and who the other people were pointless, because what happened is Rich beat Race, pinned him in the tag team match. And after the match, Race was kind of, upset and complaining and stuff like that. And Gordon Soley says something to him. He goes, Tommy Rich has beat you once. And he goes, once? He just did it again, pointing to the ring. Boy, you think that didn't help Tommy Rich get over?
Sure.
He was already in that thing, but you think that doesn't help? And my point is, you can get somebody who, if they have the right type of charisma, if they have the right type of fan appeal, and there's somebody in the NWA right now who has that,
Yes, and I'm gonna speculate on something after DK's done.
Yeah, and so you put the belt on them, and maybe at first it feels weird, or maybe at first like, oh, they don't seem like a world champion. I mean, they don't have that outside name, and they don't have that outside. You put the world title on them, and you let them hold that world title, and then after a while, you get your Adam Pearce. You get somebody who that belt may pierce, and then after that belt may pierce, Pearce made that belt.
That's what I wanted to get to, but you just hit it. And Jane, I'm not going to take too much time, but real quick, like the NWA world title is this, man. You either have a champion who is creating a rub for that belt, or you have a champion who is benefiting from the rub of that belt. There is no in between. You either have a guy like Nick Aldis, like Rob Conway, like Jack Stane, like Adam Pearce, who elevate that belt by the work that they do, and you have other wrestlers who get elevated by holding it. Tyrus did nothing to elevate the 10 pounds of gold, but now he could call himself a world champion. You know, and sadly, and as much as I like Trevor Murdoch, I'm going to put him on blast. What did he do as world champion that elevated the title? What did Matt Cardona do to elevate the title? I mean, you guys could debate it if you want, but EC3 as world's heavyweight champion did quite a lot to elevate the lore of the 10 pounds of gold. Taking it to All Japan is kind of a big deal. Defending that title in Europe and in all over the U.S. is a big deal. These are the things that a world champion needs to do. Or you have guys who coast. And I'm sorry, you know, I don't mean to make anyone mad here, but Matt Cardona coasted as world's heavyweight champion. Trevor Murdoch coasted as world's heavyweight champion. We wanted Trevor Murdoch to be champion, but where did he go? Who did he elevate? What did he do as champion? Tell me where I'm wrong, guys.
You're not wrong, but it may or may not have been their faults either. That's part of the problem.
Sure.
Some people need it. The thing is, there are wrestlers who will take the bull by the balls and grab a hold for a long, long ride.
Yeah.
And then some people need to actually have to be put in the saddle. But still, you know, there are people that need to be elevated. And that's exactly what I would do right now. Right now, if I was suddenly, for some reason, Billy came to his senses and put me in charge. And I know he has no idea who I am or why the hell I should be doing this or why do I have any qualifications to do it. There's probably lots of people that say the same. I'd be doing two things. I'd be doing four things simultaneously. But number one, EC3 would be elevated as champion to elevate the championship. He will be defending the title against one consistent challenger after another. These challengers are going to be getting wins, and then they're going to go against EC3. I call it the bum of the month club technique, but but I don't want any bums. I want constant wrestlers to get world title shots in and out of the NWA. Get EC3 back in Japan. Get EC3 and actually highlight this. Use this highlight. Like, all right, look, All Japan Pro Wrestling, we won EC3. Do us a favor. We'd like the copy of this match. We'd like to use highlights of it on our YouTube page. We'd like to use highlights of it on Power. We'd like to use highlights on Twitch. We'd like to use highlights on X, on Facebook, everything we can find. If TikTok's still around, we'll use that. Have them elevated, show highlights on alliance-wrestling.com and the Alliance Guys podcast. Elevate that footage everywhere. And the same thing in Europe against top challengers. And go around and work with EC3 to have top matches against guys who are not in the NWA who actually can help elevate him and the belt. At the same time, build up challengers on Power and build up challengers on anything else they can find on the territories, and just constantly feed him guys to build himself up. At the same time, do the same with Thrillbilly. Thrillbilly, maybe put a TV title on him. I don't think he's ever been TV champion, but have him get that TV title, have him get 7 impressive wins, build up these challengers by having a match the week before, and then the winner of the match gets a shot at Thrillbilly, and then Thrillbilly defeats him, and get rid of that stupid 605 limit too. Make it a 10, 15-minute time limit. But get Thrillbilly good matches and get him promos and get him on Twitch and get him on Instagram and get him on Facebook and get him on everywhere and have him cut promos because he's damn good at it. Find local TV, find podcasts. Billy, use any ability you have to not only get EC3 out there in places, on television, on radio, on podcasts, in newspapers, on websites. Get them all out there constantly and have them elevated as stars. And then also at the same time, build up somebody for one big final match, a number one contenders match, Thrillbilly versus one other wrestler, somebody who's really talented, somebody who's really got a good look too, somebody who could possibly build up for the future and a future shot for this same way, and have a number one contenders match, have a match that's really important, not a tournament. Tournaments don't need to be happening all the time. There's too many damn tournaments everywhere, and they don't mean anything like they used to. Back one time, the Super 8 was great. Nowadays, tournaments are just dime a dozen. You can get them, see them, and every promotion does them all the time. Actually build up challengers by giving them wins, by giving them matches, by giving them promo time, by having other wrestlers talk about them, and then do such a thing. And like I said, do that with Thrillbilly. Finally, biggest pay-per-view, whatever your biggest pay-per-view or premium live event is, and make it an actual premium live event, not a TV taping, not something that's going to happen 19 months down the road, or the show 19 months down the road, but an actual built-up premium live event. Do it on Twitch, do it on X, do it on everything. Post it everywhere you can, and have a big whatever you have to do to get it over. Have that big match. Have former champions come in. Have current challengers talk about who they think they're going to win. Start that pay-per-view or start that event with that big match. Constantly have people talking about how great it's going to be. Talk about who they predict is going to win. If Billy has any celebrity friends, bring them at that time. Have them talk about who they think is going to win. Have them post it on their in all their social medias. Have them talk about who they want to see the champion, and just have that big match with all the hype you can give it. And then the two guys in the ring need to bring it, everything they have, and make that match something that can't miss. And I think right then and there, Thrillbilly is your star. Silas is your next world's champion. Silas is your next star. Any ideas? Any thoughts?
I do have one thought.
Uh-oh.
And Jay, I actually want your opinion on this first, just to change things up.
Yeah. Hey, I like my opinion.
Well, somebody should. Now,
most of the time.
How important is it for becoming appealing to other wrestlers who aren't necessarily former AEW or WWE or quote unquote names, that you do have somebody like Silas that you build up, put the world title on, and give him a good run with champion, providing he can handle it. Well, I think he can, but we'll put that in there. Over, why do I want to go work there? I'm never going to get anywhere because they just want to put title on somebody like EC3 or.
Say your question a little bit differently, because I'm having trouble following, and it's not you, it's me.
Yeah,
He's Taylor Swift all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's all I noticed. That's what he gets for having girls. Okay. How important is it to build up your own champions to sell for signing new talent over just putting the belt on former quote unquote names, however big they may or may not be?
Gotcha. So I think you have to walk a fine line, and we saw this in play. We saw this in motion when Matt Cardona came in and won the World Heavyweight Championship. We also saw it when Cody came in and won the World Heavyweight Championship. These gentlemen were not ever going to be long-term NWA players. The most homegrown guys we have in the NWA at this point also did not start in the NWA as far as world champions go. I mean, Trevor Murdoch, having the title on Trevor Murdoch, we saw that maturation. He came in, he wrestled for the TV title tournament. He was unsuccessful. He ended up capturing the national title and was built up to win the World Heavyweight Champion. So even though Trevor Murdoch had some legacy behind him with the WWE, I feel like he was mostly an NWA built product, a Lightning One era built wrestler. And I would say the same thing about Thom Latimer, even though Tom has had his history with TNA wrestling, had spent some time, I think, in Pro Wrestling Noah. Honestly, I don't think that Thom Latimer today doesn't exist without the Lightning One era NWA, where EC3 is like, I feel like he was a free agent that they brought in, and he came in and won the title, similarly to Cardona, similarly to Cody, except for he was here to stay a little bit longer. And I think the proof is in the pudding. What do we see? Who has the most excitement? When Aldis came in and won the title from Tim Storm, everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion that Aldis would be world champion as soon as he announced that he was challenging Tim Storm. It took 2 tries to do it, but we never looked back, right? He won the title at Combat Zone Wrestling on December 9th, 2017, and we never looked back. And I think there's something to be said that if you can bring in a name that's going to bring eyeballs to the product, but I think in building up your own product, your champion should come from within. But the problem is right now, the NWA hasn't recognized a way to create a star. And Jordynne just literally pontificated about how you can make Silas Mason the next big thing for the National Wrestling Alliance, but nobody in the NWA is doing that. And that's not, I think Jordynne's plan was perfectly executed there, but I don't see Billy and the NWA doing that. I think for what your question is it better to create your own champion, or is it better to sign somebody to build your champion? I mean, I think long-term for the NWA, it's better for them to create their own stars. I think for the fans and for the engagement level and the excitement, there's something to be said about trying to bring in that big name that's a former WCW, ECW, TNA, AEW, whatever, Lucha Underground guy. That if you could bring somebody in that's got value, like somebody, just as I was naming off those promotions, and somebody that I thought about was, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Mundo, whatever you want to call him, Johnny AEW, whatever his name is these days. If they brought him in to challenge for the 10 pounds of gold, whether it be Thom Latimer or EC3, I think there would be a level of excitement. Oh, this guy's been around the block. He's done this. He's done that. He's a former TNA world champion. He held, the ECW world title. I mean, he's a commodity. I think there would be in the interim, I think there would be some excitement, but I think long term, it doesn't really grow the brand by bringing in somebody like that. Did that answer your question, DK?
Yes. I didn't know if I was on mute or not. I was looking for your thoughts on that. Jordynne, what about you?
I slightly disagree, just slightly. I do think it does in the long term, if done right, bringing in big time challengers for the 10 pounds of gold does help in the long term, but there just has to be they know they're there to build up the World Heavyweight Champion and the World Heavyweight Championship. If they end up staying, that's great, and then they can start building up then. But if they don't, then that's just they're great. They're not there for a long time, but they're there for a good time. And if you get something out of it, it can be done. But I think it's important to have challengers, because here's the thing: it's easier to make a name if you have a name already. The problem is, I don't think they know how to make anybody. Thom Latimer is a former NWA World Tag Team Champion. He's a former NWA World Television Champion. He's a former NWA National Champion. He's a current NWA, we'll see, World Heavyweight Champion. The only men's title the heavyweight title he hasn't held is the U.S. Tag Championship. Yet, I don't think any one of those, the World, the Tag Team, the U.S., any one of those, the National, have built him up. I don't think he's a bigger star by being one half of the World Tag Team Champion. I don't think he was a bigger star by being the National Champion. I don't think he was a bigger star by being the Television Champion. And I still don't think he's a bigger star by being the World Champion. And I don't know if it's Latimer. I really don't want to blame Latimer. It's the booking edit. If you're going to, people think just putting belts on somebody means you're putting them over and you're pushing them. No. You could put 20 belts on somebody and they could have every indie crap roll of belt out there. And if you don't know how to use that to put them over, then it doesn't mean anything. People have the romanticized notion of the Ultimo Dragon with the 10 belts. The problem is if none of the belts mean anything, then you could hold all the belts in the world. It's just jewelry. The belts aren't props. Belts should be the most important member of your roster. Championships. And belts. Championships should be the most important member of your roster. If I was the TV champion, I'd be looking to go elsewhere. TV championship, I'd be looking to go elsewhere because that has not been elevated at all. In fact, it's been brought down since the Pope has had it. Right now, it's gotten under, not over. Same thing for the national. Same thing for the United States tag. Same thing for the world tag. Same thing for right now the world heavyweight. Even the only championship that means anything in the NWA is the women's, and even that's starting to lose some of its luster. And I mean the World Women's Championship, not the TV or the tag team. That's the only championship in the NWA that has gotten elevated and it still means something and is still, it's better off than it was when it was created or brought back. Every other championship now has just been devalued, and that's a sin. And it's because of stupid booking. It's because of stupid gimmicks. It's because of stupid cocaine spots. It's because of all this other stuff. People are talking about everything else but how great the NWA World Heavyweight Champion looks and how important that championship means and how big of a star and how much it's elevating EC3 and how much EC3 is elevating it, or Thom Latimer or whoever's holding it. And since Aldis left, there's nobody in there that can say it. EC3 came close, and it was through his own accord, not Billy Corgan. But even then, he was the biggest dog, and elevating a championship at the NWA's pretty much weakest point.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. The lie detector detects no lies. I've said this pretty frequently, and I should put it on a shirt. The NWA is just a little bit off from being right, but I feel like they correct one thing and then have a problem with something else. And I get that it takes a lot of plate spinning to make a wrestling promotion work, but you got to spin all the plates. And I agree. I think EC3, what you were saying earlier, EC3 taking the belt and elevating it, because right now, look, I don't blame Tom. You don't blame Tom. I don't think the people in the chat blame Tom. But as of right now, Tom is kind of, through no fault of his own, has become kind of boring. And it's not like his matches have gotten worse. It's just this angle, this storyline, this feud with EC3 hasn't hit the way I think the NWA hoped it would, right? Because if it would have hit the way it should have, we should all be going, wow, this is great. The two best guys in the NWA. And here we are clamoring for somebody to step up and take in that position to be the next big thing, to be the next guy. And, I think, to your point from earlier, if you did have an EC3 as champion once again and going and doing all of those things, or even if Thom Latimer could do those things. I mean, look, I understand that Thom Latimer has a storied past and a lot of people don't want to work with him. Okay. And that's just the facts. I'm not speculating. I'm not saying anything negative about Tom, but his history has prevented people from wanting to work with him. If that's the case, then they need to find somebody who will be more universally accepted. And that sucks for Tom, but that's also, that's he can't do a whole lot about that, right? But if there is people who are willing to work with Tom, I mean, look, EC3 went to Australia. EC3 went to Japan. And it wasn't like it was one trip. Those were separate trips, man. And I don't know if he came out of pocket for that, if he got the promoters to pay for that. I don't know what happened. But ultimately, EC3 was the guy that took that belt places it hadn't been in years, and maybe even decades. And with All Japan Pro Wrestling, like 30 years. it's just it is. We've gotten to this place now where I don't know what more the NWA could do as it stands today to take that next step, Jaden. I don't know what they can do.
I do.
Well, okay, look, we all have ideas what they could do, but realistically, what are they willing to do? You know,
Well, that's just it. What they're willing to do is a different thing. Do you remember the Ohio Valley Wrestling documentary?
The one that was on Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know that partially is the reason that the WWE got the Netflix deal?
I did not know that, but that makes sense.
It did decently well, better than expected it for it to do. You know what else did decently well on Netflix, believe it or not? Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
That did way better than they had any expectation of it doing. And that had partially to do with the interest of the WWE into Netflix.
Yeah.
Well, if you can the Monster Factory did it. You can find somebody who's willing to do a documentary on not Billy Corgan, but the NWA.
Well, and you've got Overmetal in the chat right now. And like he says, I think I'm taking crazy pills, but why not just bring back the 10 pounds of gold? Absolutely. I mean, I think that answers one of the biggest problems that the NWA is facing today. I mean, let's if we could just get back in the Wayback Machine. You know, Nick Aldis wasn't a household name when he won the 10 pounds of gold, right? He wasn't a former WWE superstar. He hadn't spent any time in a WCW locker room. He was not a former ECW, alumnus. He was a TNA guy. And let's be honest, TNA has been around forever, but I would not say that TNA has always been the best produced pro wrestling. But Aldis was a great talent. And when Cream rises to the top, I mean, that's what Aldis did. He took, look, I'm not going to document everything that Aldis ever did, but I mean, he was an American gladiator for the UK. He was a British gladiator that got an opportunity with TNA wrestling and made something out of it. And he was elevated from TNA. He came to the NWA, which a lot of people thought might have been a step backwards, but it was the storytelling. It was that 10 pounds of gold series that, first of all, made everyone fall in love with Tim Storm, because nobody knew who Tim Storm was when he was NWA World Champion. We did because we're hardcore NWA fans, but the general public, I still have people talking to me today when they find out that I'm an NWA fan and says, wow, that Tim Storm guy, like, man, I just fell in love with that guy. Yeah, he's a great dude. When he's not wearing a duster and having a handlebar mustache, I mean, he's actually a pretty cool guy. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that until the 10 pounds of gold series, and he became a very lovable character. Tim Storm wasn't always a baby face. Like, he spent more of his career as a heel, but during the 10 pounds of gold series, the NWA produced that in such a way that not only did Tim Storm become a lovable character, but Aldis was a shit heel for taking that belt away from Tim Storm. And then as a documented Nick Aldis's journey as world's heavyweight champion, like, we didn't just see that title belt at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, or we didn't just see that title belt in Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, he literally took that title around the world. And maybe it was not it wasn't Billy Corgan, it wasn't the National Wrestling Alliance, but the 10 pounds of gold ended up in China, a place where most wrestling has never been.
Except for Sean Waltman.
Oh my God. Womp, 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 womp. But what I'm saying is that documentary series that was, it was heavily produced. It was not a work of it was definitely fiction with elements of nonfiction. I mean, it was telling a story, but it was telling their story. It was controlled by the narrative of Dave Lagana, Billy Corgan, and Nick Aldis. I mean, it was definitely produced in a way that was telling a story. It wasn't a documentary. And I think if the NWA could find a way to get back to those kind of roots, like, look, Power should still exist. I'm not saying we dump Power for anything else, but when you have a world's heavyweight champion who, like, look, and Matt said it earlier in the chat, recently, Thom Latimer wrestled against Tommy Dreamer for ACW, and that match exists. And I'm not saying that Tommy Dreamer is the biggest star. I'm not saying he's the biggest name in pro wrestling, but like that's a match that might have gotten people interested in the NWA. Had the NWA promoted it, had the NWA shared that, it was another match on that ACW card because the NWA didn't try to promote it. The NWA didn't get behind it, and they don't necessarily have to promote it. They don't necessarily have to get behind it, but they should be promoting the world champion. And that's where
you don't have to eat every day, but it sure does help you survive. You don't have to breathe, but when you stop, the alternative isn't necessarily something you want to get, do. Ham sandwiches rise to the top of the lunch menu. Exactly. And you're right. And they don't have to call it 10 pounds of gold, though. If that's the problem, because you know what? Lagana and Billy and all this, they didn't create that concept. That concept was absolutely perfected by HBO, Boxing After Dark and the HBO 24/7 and all that other stuff that they had. That concept was done beautifully when they used to promote those big boxing events. To this day, I still watch that stuff and you dream about being able to do that. That's what the 10 pounds of gold did well. Not as well as HBO, but that's because nobody did that as well as HBO. Other people have done it. UFC used to do it. It was great. I miss those UFC build-ups. I don't get them anymore. WWE has done them in the past with the guy with the voiceover that sounds like Goliath from it's not David Keith, but it definitely sounds like a David Keith ripoff.
Well, what was the guy from TNA? Like he used to do great packages.
Yeah. They could do that. They could have somebody, if Billy wanted to invest in the NWA, Latimer, EC3, Thrill Billy. There's other personalities. Kenzie Page, Kylie Page.
I think you're casting that net so wide. Let's just narrow focus, high intensity. Let's make the 10 pounds of gold. And look, I'm not saying it needs to be the name of the show, but that should be the emphasis, and it should follow the world champion. And I think who's probably best suited for it. And I know a lot of people in the chat won't agree, but EC3 is the best guy to do that because he has a lot going on, and you could show him at Exodus Pro. And you could show him on the road, and you could show him look, he's an egomaniac enough to be like, yeah, let's do this. Let's film every minute of my life. And I'm not saying it's got to be every minute of his life, but a camera and a decent editor could put together some footage that would make you more interested. I'm sure of it. I'm positive of it.
Yes, it's been done for years. It's called a hype video. It's hyperbole. It's promotion. It makes you care. You get behind the personalities of the wrestlers. You get behind the motivations of the professional wrestlers. You start seeing them as bigger than life, and you start seeing them. And the 10 pounds of people always forget too. The 10 pounds of gold. It did the NWA World Title mostly. It also did the NWA Women's Title.
Yeah, and look, I feel like maybe that's something that you could do each season, and maybe the season is 4 times a year. I don't know, but I feel like, or maybe it's just something we use quarterly to build up to a returning pay-per-view or something. But again, I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get too excited about something that is probably not going to happen. But I just feel like, Matt has been saying it in the chat, no, my friend, you are not the only one that thinks that would be a good idea. Yes, I feel like the NWA is sorely missing an opportunity to make money, but it does cost money to do this. It does cost money to have somebody follow EC3 around. It costs EC3 money to be going around. All this is a dollar and cents game, and there isn't look, TNA, AEW, they get paid to create content from somebody. They're getting paid. No one's paying the NWA to create content. Does the NWA sell their content and get paid for it? Yes. But no one is paying the National Wrestling Alliance to go on X. No one's paying the National Wrestling Alliance to be on YouTube. They make money with these ventures, but it's different. WWE gets paid to produce programming for Netflix. WWE gets paid for their programming for CW. WWE gets paid for Peacocks and you know, but no one's paying for that rich historic Lightning One era NWA vault. No one's paying for that.
Give somebody something they want to buy. Somebody will pay for it, though.
Right.
If nobody wants to willing to pay for it, Billy, that means it's not worth their money. Give them something they would buy.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, like, look, it's you know, you know, Sean Mega says MLW had investors even before the WWE lawsuit. Look, MLW is in the same boat. No one's paying MLW to create content. Do they make money with their YouTube videos? I'm sure. Do they sell tickets? Yeah, I'm sure. But it's different. It's a different modus operandi if someone's paying for you to produce content. It's a different world. And you know, in for DKM and for our friends over at Dog, like, love it. I'm excited for what you guys are going to do, but nobody's paying for that content yet. And when they do, it's a different world. And right now, Billy is taking his money and he is putting it into this really highly produced indie. It's a very highly produced independent wrestling show. And he's got great cameras and he's got high def, like 4K. And they have these beautiful wrestling venues and they really dress up these buildings to look amazing to put 400 people in that audience. And he's got this most historic World's Heavyweight Championship in all of North America. It's a beautiful title. It means so much to wrestling fans. And where's the spotlight on it?
Now, I know DK is itching to come back after shaving his legs, but I want to say something real quick. Guys, in this listening right now, if you're listening now, you're listening live, you're listening later, please start a hashtag bring back 10 pounds of gold. Please get it going in the Discord. Please ask anybody you know who would care about it to do the same. Maybe we can get something going. Maybe this could be our movement right now to get the NWA to maybe do something. And I don't have confidence that they'll do it well, but maybe if they at least attempt it, maybe something will better. And maybe we could say we were the grassroots that started it. You know, there was that Save Women's Wrestling or Give Women's Wrestling a Chance or whatever that happened that brought back out, they took away the Divas era and actually had it for a period of time where women's wrestling was treated very well. And AEW was a movement. Now it's not, but back then it was a movement. It was something special, and they used it, and it was crowdfunded and everything else. Maybe, guys, we can start our own movement if we can get enough people to hashtag bring back 10 pounds of gold. Then maybe it will happen, and maybe our voices can be heard. Because, you know, the power of the people right now, you have the ability. This is the time in life right now where people are fighting back. Be our own Luigi and take a shot. All right. Too much? Too soon? You're on mute right now, Jay. I don't know why. I can't hear you, Jay. You're on mute.
That's a little edgy for our audience. It's not too soon. It's just a little edgy.
First of all, this is me. Second of all, I really like DK NWA show. I didn't mean to tell him that. Third of all, hey, if I got my point across, take your shot. Be a Luigi.
Hey, real quick, what do you guys think of the background for the podcast with live stream? It looks kind of cool, doesn't it? I'm proud of it. I'm not a graphics designer, but I did this.
Only thing now is for some reason, and maybe it just might be the phone I'm on, the Alliance Guys logo on the left, on at least where I can see it, is a little blurry. And I don't know if it's just how it is right now, because it wasn't that way last week.
I'm looking I'm looking on two different devices. Of course, the camera that I'm looking at right now, my screen, and then of course what I have down here on my phone, and it looks clear to me. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's you have a bad connection. I don't know.
That's possible.
See,
I haven't spoken like a robot yet.
All I wanted was that. Great job, Jay. Thank you, Devin Dowling. Thank you, Double D. And look, even McKenzie, I don't think I've noticed you on our podcast before, but thanks, man. I appreciate the positive words. And Steve G, Thank you, Steve G. And look, and what you guys might not notice is that QR code changes every like 30 seconds or so. So, if you're curious as to see where it's sending you, take a picture. It might be my OnlyFans. It might not be my OnlyFans. I'm just saying.
Only slams? Oh, great.
Only slams.
Yeah, look at that DK.
You might find a video of DK yelling at a cloud somewhere. I don't know.
I'm sure there's plenty of those videos around.
That would actually be hilarious. Maybe I'll work on that. You take a picture and then it takes you to an AI video of DK yelling at the clouds.
He needs his own T-shirt in. So, DK, have you been hearing anything we were saying?
Oh, have you guys been talking?
He's checking out.
I've heard some of what you've been saying.
Hashtag bring back the 10 pounds of gold. Everybody start doing it right now. Do it on X. Do it on Twitch. Do it on Facebook. Do it on Instagram. Do it on Blueski. Do it on
what? We're going skiing?
Snapchat. Do it on Livewire or LimeWire or any of it. Bring it all. Hashtag let's start a movement.
Wait. Did you say LimeWire?
Yeah.
Wasn't that how you gave your computer AIDS in the early 2000s?
That's 100% how you gave your computer AIDS. But I had 8,211 songs.
and how Double D with the win. Can we just make power good again? You would need a time machine, Dave Lagana, Dave Marquez, and maybe even Josephus Hudson.
Probably Jim Cornette too.
Yeah, and look, I guarantee you Cornette never sat there in a production meeting and said, oh, I got nothing else to add, guys. Like Jim Cornette's super opinionated. I'm sure he said lots of things like, well, that's fucking stupid. Why would you do that?
I wonder how he would have liked Gags the Gimp.
The same way Nick Aldis liked Gags the Gimp.
Nick loved Gags.
I think that was one of his hallmarks of why he wanted to leave the NWA, because he thought it was stupid.
Well, then I give him more credit than I used to.
Yeah, when you look back in those 2020 glasses and think about what we lost when Nick left, like he was still an asshole, but he was our asshole, and he is kind of missed. I'm happy. I never wanted the guy to go hungry. I never wanted him not to have a job, but I wanted him just to take the NWA as seriously as I did. And
I can't say he didn't.
No, well, look, Nick Aldis's run as world's heavyweight champion when he first won that title was pretty magical. And I don't think that we will ever see that replicated. And again, I think that was with the triumvirate of William Patrick Corgan, Dave Lagana, Dave Marquez. They gave these opportunities for Nick Aldis to be these places. Like, look, if there was no championship wrestling from Hollywood, what would have happened for the 10 pounds of gold? Where would they have gone? Tried and true? Where would they have gone? They didn't have a place. I feel like there was a perfect storm with those three guys and Aldis as world champion. Look, Marquez is the one that got the 10 pounds of gold to China. That wasn't a Nick Aldis deal. And had there not been this movement with the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes to try to sell out a 10,000 seat arena, we would never have had All In. And the biggest world title match for the NWA that year would have been the China defense with Colt Cabana and Nick Aldis. It was only after those plans were already in works that the all-in plan started to fall into place. And when Cody was, I can literally tell you guys, I heard voicemails when I was in China sitting next to Dave Lagana eating breakfast about Cody wanting that match. And some of the negotiations that were happening right there in China, it wasn't a done deal that Aldis was going to be defending at All In. And the original plan was supposed to be a 3 pay-per-view event. It was supposed to be All In. It's supposed to be the NWA 70th anniversary show, and it was supposed to be the Ring of Honor card at Madison Square Garden. Like, that was the original plan. And anyways, I guess what I'm saying is I feel like Nick Aldis did a lot of good in that first run as World's Heavyweight Champion. I feel like that second run, he mailed it in. I feel like I understand that COVID. I understand that, it's easy to get comfortable when you have power. You have a place to work every week. I feel like had Nick kept that same energy to establish the 10 pounds of gold the first time around as the second time around, I feel like I would have been talking about Nick Aldis in an entirely different fashion.
And I don't necessarily agree that he mailed it in. I just don't think he put as much effort into it, because one thing's for sure, that build up and I'm going to give Nick a major chunk of this credit. The build up for the match with him and Trevor Murdoch was very well done.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like,
yeah.
Look, yes, but when you had a guy who, like, again, the whole 10 pounds of gold, there was no power when Aldis became champion the first time around. So going from town to town, working for Tommy Dreamer, House of Hardcore, going to Australia, House of Hardcore, people don't remember, but he wrestled against, what do they call him in WWE? His name was Jonas on the Indies. The big, the guy that just recently.
The big tsunami guy?
Yeah.
I had him for when to say tsunami. Now I can't think of that. Only thing I can think of is tsunami.
I mean, he had some big time matches. It didn't make power, but he wrestled against Lance Archer down in Bronson Reed. There it is. He wrestled against Lance Archer down in Texas. I mean, he was having some really big matches. And again, I think it was because he had to get that belt a little bit more shine. When Tim won the title off of Jack Stane, it was kind of like a slippery slope, because when you look at the NWA title, Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana are in Australia at the height of the NWA success from the pro wrestling organization area. There's a lawsuit. The control of the NWA is now in somebody else's hands. That they take away the sanctioning of this match between Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana, and all of a sudden, this title, people are looking at this. The 7 Levels of Hate was being talked about in PWI. It won like Feud of the Year, it was like 3rd place for Feud of the Year behind 2 WWE matches. I mean, it was a big deal, considering this was independent NWA wrestling, and it got all the way to Australia. They changed the way that things were going, the whole dynamic of it, and then you had this time where the new NWA, the Bruce Tharp NWA, had to figure out what they were going to do. So they hot shot the belt onto Tokyo Monster Kahagas. We all thought it was going to be Damian Wayne.
Controversy.
It should have been Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne 100% deserved that title, and that's not to take anything away from Tokyo Monster Kahagas, who I have nothing but respect for, but it should have been Damian Wayne, and that should have been your feud coming out of New Jersey out of that night. It should have been Tokyo Monster Kahagas and Damian Wayne. They hot shot the belt off of Kahagas onto Rob Conway because they have this deal in place with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And now it feels like the Bruce Tharp era maybe is the biggest NWA era, because now they have their world's heavyweight champion in Japan. You've got your world's heavyweight champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he didn't just go to drop the title to somebody. He spent a pretty significant time in Japan where he was feuding. Him and Jack Stane were your NWA World Tag Team Champions. They were defending the tag titles. He wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom, for crying out loud, with the 10 pounds of gold. So there was a lot of significance there for Rob Conway. And then when Conway loses that belt, first he loses it to Kojima, and then wins it back from Kojima. When Kojima was champion, I mean, it wasn't a huge title that was defended all the time in Japan, but it was a big deal because you had he's a little bit past his prime, but he was still a fairly big deal to have Kojima being your world champion. And then
Hey, he just lost the MLW title.
He just lost the MLW title
after a 10-month, well, almost an 11-month reign.
And then Conway loses the title for a second time against Tenzin. And that's when the momentum kind of slows down. We see that New Japan Pro Wrestling isn't really interested in working with the NWA at that point. And then you get Jack Stane, who wins the title and has a pretty 440 plus days as world champion, defending all over the United States. That was a pretty good deal. They were building up Tim Storm, and they had this nice feud going. Tim Storm wins the title, and it kind of, unfortunately, the steam from the NWA was coming to a conclusion. It was hard to keep people interested, and I don't blame Tim Storm for that. I think he was the right guy. I just feel like the NWA at that point, they didn't have a TV show. They didn't have a place to point fans. The owner of the NWA was convinced to make the current NWA more popular was to have a streaming channel of the Paul Bosch library and call it NWA Classics. The momentum slowed down. So when Nick Aldis won that title, he very much had to get out there and work his ass off to prove that the credibility of that 10 pounds of gold was meaningful. And they tried to forget about Conway's reign. They tried to forget about Pierce's reign. They wanted to connect Aldis to Ric Flair, which, I mean, we all know that wasn't the case. There was so much time in between. So when Aldis was champ, he was killing it. And then he lost to Trevor Murdoch. It was a great storyline, a great build. Or excuse me, when he lost to Cody, it was a great build to that match. He wins it back. They didn't have the return match like they were supposed to have at Ring of Honor. And then that momentum kind of stalled. And then leading into COVID, Aldis' schedule almost stopped entirely. And then Trevor Murdoch would eventually be, kind of emerge as the next guy during the return after COVID. So it was, I don't feel like Aldis was the same Aldis after the COVID shutdown. And I'm not, again, I kind of understand part of it, but I still feel like there was a point in time where Aldis meant everything to the NWA, and on his way out, he really didn't.
That's because we were all sick of him.
That's probably it too.
I mean, he could go out and, cut a 2-minute promo and make it last 10 minutes.
He was a little heavy on the promos.
Yeah, well, I mean, just look, Jaden asked me earlier if I had heard what you guys were talking about, and I've heard a lot of it, and stayed quiet intentionally because I really wanted to give you guys a chance to get out there and express your thoughts and everything. Look, it's not about the 10 pounds of gold. It's not about power. It's not about anything specific. What the 10 pounds of gold did was point you in a direction to get your interest up. And what they were trying to do, nobody knew who Tim Storm was, so let's tell them who Tim Storm is. And let's make it an interesting story, because as this thing is going, we're going to change the title anyway. So, and then they changed the title in what was their first major F-up. At a bad show in 5 minutes, which they were going to release the video to and claim they never could, and so they put up like phone footage and then took that down because it was so bad. Not the phone footage, the match. And so they had done all this build-up with 10 pounds of gold, and then they screwed it up. And this back when Lagana was there. I'm assuming back when, Marquez was there.
Yeah.
And, Marquez talked about, he didn't think it was wrong. No, it sucked. Okay. One thing Marquez never really done, and I know Jay loves him, and I love him in my own way, but he will not admit to any mistake ever.
The one thing he said at that time.
Well, you know what I mean.
The one thing he said at the time that got me was like, or at least people were talking about it. Yeah, people talked about Hillary's emails and what that do for her campaign. people were talking about a lot of stuff. Just because people talk about it doesn't mean it actually is a good, is a good thing.
And so then the next time that they really used it to where it was advantageous was Cody versus Aldis, and they used it very well there. And the match was a little over the top, but well done, and it was a good match. And it's a shame they couldn't have done their trilogy like they originally planned. And I think the original plan was for Cody to actually hold it until New York, but they started getting suspicious of Cody, and they got worried, and they decided they better take it off him at the 70th. And they still wanted to do the New York one, but I think by then most people were starting to figure out they weren't going to be there.
Yeah.
And I always remember they go, ROH sold out Madison Square Garden in 20 minutes and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, based on talent that's not going to be there.
Yeah.
And where are they now?
And now they can't sell, 4,000 tickets except for pay-per-views. And I mean, hell, MLW just drew 2,400 in a Fort Worth suburb.
They're claiming though that has something to do with the hockey game that was next door.
Well, it's a hockey place, so there might have been something else going on. But whatever the thing is, they drew it. NWA, who was about 54 miles and 2 different worlds away. You know what I'm talking about, Jay. You were there.
Oh yeah, it's for those of you who have never been to Dallas or never have been to Texas at all, like Dallas is very metropolitan. When you go to Dallas, it's just like going to any other big city in the United States. I've been to Philly, I've been to Los Angeles, I've been to Las Vegas, I've been to, I've been to quite enough cities to say like, hey, Dallas is just like anywhere else. Forney isn't. Forney's like where I live, man. There's nothing out here. It's a small podunk town.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's not too far away from the city, but it's not part of the city. And I had to laugh because I go, MLW and NWA were in Texas or in Dallas. Like, they kept saying they were in Dallas, and neither one of them was in Dallas.
Well, so like,
but at least the NWA was in a Dallas suburb. Market would be better than suburb because they're not really a suburb either.
So like where I live, I'm closer to San Diego than I am to Los Angeles. I could get to a Padres baseball game sooner than I could get to a Dodgers baseball game. Tomorrow night, I'm going to go down to Tijuana, Mexico, and watch Lucha Libre, and it's easier for me to get down to TJ and go through custom than it is for me to, even before the fires, to get to Los Angeles to watch Lucha Libre. And that's a shoot, brother. But I am in the Los Angeles market. For all intents and purposes, I'm an Angelino. When I turn on my Fox channel, news, I don't get San Diego news. I get LA news. I get the same channels that the Los Angeles market gets. So that resonates with me. And I'm like you said, you're, Forney's about an hour and a half out of Dallas. Well, yeah, I'm about an hour and a half out of Los Angeles. Without traffic, I'm about an hour and a half. So I get it.
Well, they're an hour and a half for me. They're about 30, 35, 40 minutes out of Dallas. But anyway, my whole point to that was that they drew 600.
At least you guys can still. Sorry, DK. I thought you were done.
No, which is about the same amount that they drew when they were here for Crockett Cup. Now, what's interesting is that I've gone on some local wrestling boards, and I asked people. I go, "Hey, what do you think about the fact we had MLW and NWA?" And did anybody go? A lot of people responded they went to the MLW show. I haven't found anyone yet respond they went to the NWA show. But in all honesty, they probably could have sold close to 1,000 tickets if they'd had a bigger venue. And so, but nobody really, you get that many that are there, but in another extent, I can't find anybody that was there.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not trying for anything. I just want to know if they liked it or not, what they think. Do they watch NWA regularly? And the truth is, I can't find many people that watch the NWA. And, there was a conversation, on Discord. I go, well, they get 50, 60,000 views or 90,000 views on X. And I go, I still don't know what that means. Because I've been told it can, a view can be 3 seconds. No one can tell me if I watch it 3 times, if that counts as 3 different views. I mean, and I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm trying to say I don't know what it means. That I'm literally ignorant to that.
Oh.
Well, I pushed the wrong button and you go away. Anyway, so you have, for 10 pounds of gold, which, by the way, they were going to do one on the national thing with Willie Mack.
Yep.
And they kind of did one on the women's. But my point is, you got to have something that draws in. In this day and age, it works better when you have something that, is going to make you interested. We were kind of interested in who was Tim Storm. We were interested in Cody going for a title his dad held, become the first father-son.
It was the story.
Yeah. And so that's where the outside story is important. And then you got to back it up with what you do in the ring. And it was a well-booked process through that. And so there's no magical, we'll bring back 10 pounds of gold. Well, to what extent? Will it really get Latimer roll over if they don't book Latimer well? I mean, I heard you guys talk about how he wrestled Tommy Dreamer and the NWA ignored it. Well, then I found out that he lost by disqualification. Well, hell, if my 30-something-year-old top champion is losing to Tommy Dreamer, who at the time Tim Storm was champion, was talking about how he looked like shit. Tommy Dreamer was saying it. Tim looks so good, he looks like crap. And now also say, my champion faced Tommy Dreamer and lost by DQ. Well, I wouldn't want to acknowledge it either.
Well,
I'm going to put this last thing on there. That's the same show that TNA champion Nick Nemeth, yes, finally remembered it. Nick Nemeth defended his TNA world title against Matt Riddle, which he won, and now Riddle's gone on to win the MLW championship in what was a very average match.
I guess to me that's more of a quality control that the NWA should be invoking. It's they have all the pieces to do what they want to do, right? And Billy holds the cards. He's the one that makes the decisions.
And at times, every part of the piece has worked well,
sure.
except for the booking. The booking's always been a little bit off, but it's worked better at other times than it does now. They just can't get it all together at the same time.
And I think there's no catch-all that fixes everything, right? There's nothing that's going to fix everything, but there are things that they could do to make the content better. There are things that they could do to get people more excited about it. But, what it all comes down to is I was talking to an insider today, not somebody in the NWA, but a wrestling promoter, and he said to me that he doesn't think Billy wants the NWA to be successful. And I go, what do you mean? Like, he's invested all this money. He goes, yeah, but like, this is just 1/3 of what Billy Corgan is, right? Like, take out the equation that he's a dad, take out the equation that he's a husband, take out the equation that he's he's got that family life, but he's also a music maker, a music producer, a music enthusiast, and he's got Madame Zuzu's tea shop, which is something that's important to him. This is like the third of things that he is invested in, right? And I don't know that having your focus divided by 3, and that's on top of being a family man. That means he's got 4 things. I've always said this myself. The Alliance blog is like my 5th child, and that's because my business is my 4th child, and I have a lot of mouths to feed, and that means not just food, but like attention. Like if I'm not paying enough attention to my business and I don't make money, I can't feed my family, right? And if I'm not paying enough attention to my kids, my wife isn't going to be very happy with me hanging out here on Thursday nights with you guys. So I have to find a balance. And look, if this podcast blew up tomorrow and all of a sudden, like, I have to replace my day-to-day job doing this, like, I would kind of like that a lot. But at the same time, like, if it doesn't pay more than what I'm making doing my 9-to-5 job, then how do I justify that to my family? So there's trade-offs with all of it. And if Billy's idea is like, look, this is fun, this is something that I like to do, but if it got any bigger, maybe he couldn't control it. Maybe he wouldn't have the time for it. I mean, how many times have we seen him miss TV tapings because he was on tour? And I get one hand washes the other. Like, if he's not touring, how does he pay for the wrestling? It all kind of goes together. So
I think that's too complicated for Billy. I think Billy wants everything he does to be a success. I just don't. I mean, I think he wants the NWA to be successful, but it goes back to what I've always said. I don't think Billy wants it to be successful. I will do what it takes for it to be successful. I think Billy wants to do what he wants, and then he wants that to be successful.
And in a way, that's way with everybody. But the problem is, I don't think Billy can recognize that what his current way of doing so is showing any positives, any momentum positively to be successful. And by the way, you guys were complaining about your market still in California and your market still in Texas. In my damn state, events can be run in Pennsylvania and they're saying live from Philadelphia, or they can be run up in North Jersey and they can be like live from New York, and they're in neither damn state.
That's true. All right, so flipping pages a little bit here, and I'm going to go ahead and warn anybody who does not care about the WWE or TNA wrestling that this is a good time to get up and get a soda pop or a snack or something, because we're going to be talking a little bit about WWE. We're going to talk a little bit about TNA wrestling, because the news broke today that not just a verbal agreement, not just a handshake, but a multi-year, multifaceted, cross-platform promotion between WWE and Total Nonstop Action was agreed upon today. We've already seen talents from TNA wrestling like Jordynne Grace. Even go back a little bit further, we saw Mickie James appear at the Royal Rumble just a few years ago while she was TNA Women's Champion. Then recently we saw Jordynne Lynn Grace. She was at the Royal Rumble last year. And even recently, we're seeing TNA stars show up on NXT programming. Even as recent as last week, we saw the TNA Women's Champion Masha Slamovich appear on the NXT. She didn't wrestle, but she was there with the title in person. And, of course, Joe Hendry spent a big chunk of last year appearing for the NXT brand along with Jordynne Grace again. And we've seen stars from the WWE cross that bridge over into TNA. Now it's official. And what we talked about, like WWE's monopoly, we've said, it's been said in the chat, the MLW lawsuit, it's like all this stuff is going on. But now the WWE, under new ownership, a new direction, and new promotional consideration, I mean, they're working with the competition now. And especially at a point in time where AEW struggling to fill arenas, AEW struggling to get, didn't they just recently lose another program that they had, right?
Yeah, and it was it may have been good riddance, but yeah, they released it was a Friday night program or Saturday, I believe. Collision or Rampage.
I think they still have Dynamite and they still have Collision. I think they lost Rampage.
They lost Rampage, and currently the negotiations for ROH fell apart.
So then my question to you is both, like, is this good or bad for pro wrestling? We're seeing, like, it's not just a handshake agreement. It's a literal Anthem Sports and TKO have entered into a partnership. And like long term, what do you see happening now? Because like earlier, when this was just a handshake agreement, we're seeing TNA talent coming. It's like I just figured Triple H was going to poach these guys. He was going to poach Jordynne. He was going to poach Joe Hendry. He was going to poach all these talents. And now I don't even think he needs to poach them anymore. So I'm curious as to what your guys' take is on it. And Jaden, I'm going to go with you first, just because DKM is muted at the moment. But what do you think about this deal? What do you think about this relationship?
If this was the old guard, I'd be a lot more worried because USWA had a relationship with the WWF, and they're no longer here. Smoky Mountain, ECW, a lot of other promotions had a deal with the WWF and the WWE, and in reality, they were just basically, they're no longer there. I think right now, it's kind of like when the WCW was running in Atlanta, and for some reason, Smoky Mountain Wrestling got a chance to run in Atlanta, Georgia, against, I think, a WCW event, maybe, or close to it. And to hurt it, WWE sent a bunch of WWF stars to work that Smoky Mountain house show and try to draw a good crowd with it to take away from WCW in their home territory. It's kind of an insult and the kind of, one-upsmanship. And I think right now, that's what TNA could be. But also, with them not really doing house shows much anymore, especially NXT. This could be a good chance for these guys to get more work, get more exposure, and work with different talent. Because right now, the problem with the NXT talent is there's only the NXT talent to work with until they get to the main roster. Now, maybe they could work with somebody with this WWE ID and work somewhere out of there, and work with TNA, work with different crowds, work with different producers, work against different talent, learn more, and be able to expand their craft, be able to learn how to work different audiences and get themselves over and get more exposure. I think right now that is beneficial for the WWE's business model. And these wrestlers that may not make it in NXT but still want to be into professional wrestling, now they have a chance to get bigger stars and learn more. And if they do end up doing the independents, that'll help the independents out better too. The problem right now is if you believe that AEW is competition, this puts a further strain on their ability to gain wrestlers. Because right now, you got your WWE ID and you got your TNA. People can use those things, think of those things as doors into the WWE. So now they might take those opportunities and not necessarily take what Tony Khan has to offer. So if you believe that is competition and that is important for the business, that may be detrimental in that aspect. DK?
You're on mute, DK.
Blame you. I really don't know. I mean, I've never been a big fan of wrestling partnerships. I tend to find they are not only uneven and unequal, but sometimes can do as much harm to one side as it does another, or as much as it might help. Short-term things, maybe. If it's simply talent exchanging where here go away from here for a while and work over there, or work over, that might work. Go put do somebody. Truck Williams just lost the NXT title. So, go put him in TNA for a while and, let him have a run there. But you don't necessarily have him on NXT. Maybe something like that works. I don't know. I don't think this is a model that everybody should be looking to try to exploit. Doing business with WWE is not the same as doing business even with AEW or any other organization out there. So let's not fool ourselves. And that, because let's be honest, in the original thing, yeah, they got some wins and got some victories in TNA, but the TNA champions that challenge for NXT championships all lost. And so they put a title briefly on Wesley's former partner so that he could defend the title and retain it in NXT. But then he lost the championship, and then he lost the payoff match. So in NXT. So it's just one of those. I would have to watch some of that. Now the deal, Double D saying something here, Moose coming to Raw. I don't know. The deal's more an NXT TNA deal. So I think Moose would have to be out of his contract, and WWE would have to want him for him to be on Raw. And I don't. And we all know that Triple H has a J reputation. So
don't you dare say that. Jesus Christ. No, I think Jesus. I think, obviously the signature live event, or excuse me, premium live events, along with the Saturday night's taping, Saturday Night Live, I think that opens the door for TNA talent to appear. So, like, having Moose come to Raw, like your X Division, he's still the X Division champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Moose? That guy's a beast. How's he X Division champion?
I think he is, and I'll look it up right now. But
he is. I know he is.
Okay. Holy crap! Why would? Okay, never mind.
It was like when why did they do it? Because Moose is kind of like their big, loyal, always there soldier. So since they took the world title off of him, it was their consolation prize to him. How can he be the X Division champion? Because X Division has nothing to do with weight or anything. It's supposedly a style of wrestling. Remember Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe?
It's not about weight limits. It's about no limits, Jordynne. Come on.
Well, you know what? I only like Brad Armstrong and the No Limit Soldiers. The rest sucked.
Oh, my God. Shit. All right. That's fair. I can't even with you.
Well, goodbye, folks. It was a fun night.
Good old Master P. Jay's back to being quiet. I like it. DK's on mute. I'm the only one that can be heard right now.
You said Master P, and I thought you might have said something else, and we don't talk about this on this channel. You have to go elsewhere to talk about that.
Save that for your OnlyFans?
Yeah, Jay's OnlyFans. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
but anyway, like I think, honestly, I'm kind of intrigued by the idea. Because, look, where's TNA right now? Where can you see TNA? Fuck, I don't even know, right? If I had cable, I wouldn't know where to turn to watch TNA wrestling. I know I could pay for a membership to watch TNA Plus, and I think you either can simultaneously watch it live or watch it very soon after it goes live. But I don't know where you can even watch TNA wrestling. And I think that is problematic for that brand. Whereas if they start working with the WWE, who's to say, right? Who's to say that there won't be an opportunity for TNA to maybe get on another channel. And maybe there's more interest now that you could see some of this WWE influence on the product. And maybe you could see, there is definitely going to be crossover between NXT and TNA talent. But what if we do get some obligatory WWE stars showing up? AJ Styles, to me, is one of these guys who was practically a god in TNA wrestling that we haven't seen a whole lot of lately. But if you just put AJ Styles in TNA right now, does he not become one of the top acts immediately?
Well, right now he's injured, so no, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Look, and I'm not saying this is the route you go. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but wouldn't CM Punk showing up on TNA television be a huge pop for them?
Yes.
Look, I think at some point Gunther is going to lose that WWE championship that he has. What if Gunther came to TNA wrestling and challenged Nick Nemeth for the World Heavyweight Champion? Would that not blow people's minds?
Here's something that people don't think of. What if you keep Nick Aldis the whatever gimmick he is in SmackDown, but have him wrestle for TNA until he gets his mojo back and maybe start showing up on SmackDown?
I mean, look, all of these things are within the realm of possibility. Are they going to happen? Probably not. Like, look, I don't think you're going to get CM Punk in a TNA ring, but I also never thought I'd see CM Punk in a WWE ring. And Nick Nemeth had to go and leave the WWE. Like, he was released, but he had to go find himself to get excited about pro wrestling again. But what if, they backdoored him in? Like AJ Francis, even on Twitter, tweeted about, they keep showing me the door, but I keep finding ways back in. I'm all about it, man. I think this is great. I know it's not great for the competition. It's not great for AEW. It's certainly not great for MLW, but I think it could be some pretty interesting things. And when you have that NXT roster, like, look, those guys should be working more dates. Those guys should be getting more TV time. Obafemi versus Moose. Book it, bro. That's going to be killer. There's so many matches that I think just on the NXT roster with TNA could be huge. But that's not even to say that there's even a bigger crossover appeal if you bring in a WWE superstar to main event a match or do a series of matches. Carl Anderson hasn't been on WWE programming in months. What if Carl Anderson with Big Drew? What do you call? What do they call him? I forgot what they called. What is? I'm having
Doc Gallows?
Say it again.
Doc
Gallows. Yeah. I'm sorry, Big Doc. Excuse me. What if they showed up to challenge Nick Nemeth for the TNA Championship?
I was thinking Festus.
Yeah, Festus works too. But all I'm saying is that would be huge. And right now, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody here, but right now, Carl the Machine Gun Anderson has not been seen on WWE programming for quite some time, but he's a big enough name that if he showed up on TNA wrestling, it would be a big deal.
I just thought of something evil.
Logan Paul?
Yes.
Dominic Mysterio. Come on.
Yeah.
Rey Mysterio with Penta winning the X Division championship.
Penta, no. Penta needs to stay out of there. I think Penta's better off right where he is.
Probably.
But imagine if, say, this leads to TNA getting some kind of television deal. This is a shame that there's no longer a WWE network because this would have been perfect for them.
Yeah.
But say the TNA gets something where they're on Destination America now, which is actually a bigger deal than the station they're on. But imagine if that Destination America show, CM Punk shows up and outdraws AEW that week.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Can you imagine how butthurt a lot of people would be?
I'm telling you, man, I think it would blow people's minds.
Chris would probably still be crying. And we know how much Matthew Underwood loves him, CM Punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, and I know Willie Bowen's in the chat going, I hate WWE. I hate CM Punk. What are you guys doing to me? But, I think this is worthy of talking about. I think this could be something really big in the world of pro wrestling. I think it could be a big deal. And I don't know, man.
You got to keep up with what's going on in WWE because that's the way wrestling's going to move.
Yeah, where they go, wrestling follows.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's because everybody else took on the dog.
Yeah,
and so you can hate them all you want, but let's acknowledge realities as they are.
Yeah.
And look, I don't see many WWE stars going in wrestling in TNA. Does that mean that you might not see CM Punk make an appearance like he's done on NXT, or even Rock recently did on NXT? I'm not saying Rock would go to TNA.
Yeah.
But you might see some stars go and just be a part of the show without ever wrestling or having maybe having a confrontation, or maybe a Undertaker style shows up in the ring like he did with Braun Breaker and NXT. You show up in the ring, you choke slam the young guy and go. There's always an older, more experienced dog in the yard. But no, I don't see. I mean, honestly, I don't see Gunther going. They put a lot behind Gunther, and if they don't stop, if they finally stop screwing him up, I don't see how they can book him so well as Intercontinental Champion and book him so poorly as World Champion. It just amazes me.
I just thought of something. John Cena's on his final tour. I'm sure he'll show up at NXT once, but just imagine the internet going crazy if John Cena showing up and TNA.
Yeah.
For no other reason, just to piss people, just to be a troll.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see. And no, I don't think Nick Nemeth is going to wrestle Cody. What?
I'd love it.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be good. I just don't think it's going to happen. Again, somebody like Cody, who's, The Rock was talking about, has put the company on his shoulders for the last year. Your biggest guy, maybe if he lost the title, he might go do something like that, but certainly not as champion. I mean, that would, look, WWE working with TNA doesn't mean WWE wants to elevate TNA past NXT.
Yeah.
And certainly not up into the thing. Will we see Nick Nemeth in the Royal Rumble? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That's certainly possible. Will he win the Royal Rumble? No. Could we see him and Gunther? Maybe. Will he beat Gunther? Will it be a time? Well, they don't have time limits in WWE anymore. Will it be a draw, a double count out, or something like that? Probably not. WWE is not doing this for TNA's advantage. It will help TNA, and that's why TNA is doing it. It'll give them something to do with some of their talent and stuff like that, especially talent they're not using. Again, I could see the Good Brothers or whatever they're called, the club, or Anderson and Gallows or whatever going there. I could see AJ Styles making an appearance, but all of them also are kind of up there in age and sort of AJ Styles is kind of like Jeff Jarrett. He's always about to retire. And so, yeah, I mean, I could see some of them making appearances for TNA. But no, they're not. I don't think they're going to put their top stars in the ring with TNA top stars and help TNA look good in that sense.
See, I disagree because I think they're either in this process of acquiring them or absorbing them.
They may acquire them and they may absorb them, but I still think they think of them on an NXT level. And
but the NXT's had Cody and CM Punk and The Rock.
I 100% agree that I think that they are looking at TNA as an NXT type promotion, and that's why we've seen exclusively NXT talent appearing in TNA and TNA talent appearing on NXT, with the two exceptions of being Joe Hendry and Jordynne Grace. I think we'll see both of those talents at this year's Royal Rumble. And I wouldn't be surprised if Moose makes an appearance. Now that this is an official deal, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we see more at the premium live events, at like a Saturday night's main event. Not necessarily Raw on Netflix, not necessarily SmackDown on USA, but definitely NXT on CW. And like I said, those premium live events, why wouldn't you? If you can squeeze a little bit more star power in, why wouldn't you?
Well, it depends on. And again, I'm not saying Cody, Rock, whoever. Well, Rock, I question, but I'm not saying Cody and some of the others wouldn't appear on NXT TV. I'm saying they're not going to put Cody in the ring with TNA. I'm not saying they wouldn't go to TNA. I'm saying you're not going to put them in the ring top TNA talent.
No. It would certainly be just to make appearances.
And I don't know about the premium live events because right now, the B shows, Triple H is very happy with the 5-match formula. And I don't see I don't see him using one of those 5 matches to put over a TNA person.
But what about maybe down Saudi Arabia? They're having trouble getting people to go there. Maybe some TNA talent will
that's
on that plane. Defend that title.
If the Royal Rumble is happening in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I mean, it wouldn't. Guys like CM Punk have been on the record saying that they wouldn't want to go. We've heard Sami Zayn saying he doesn't like going. There's been a lot of guys that don't want to go.
It's changed with Sami Zayn now.
What's that?
It's changed with Sami Zayn now. They go.
Oh, okay. What I'm saying is, like, yeah, you could definitely feel that, and there would be some big surprises. And again, I know Moose isn't a household name, and I know Nick Nemeth isn't a household name, but if he showed up at the Royal Rumble as TNA World Champion in entering himself in the Rumble and actually lasted, would that not give TNA some credibility, and would that not pop an audience?
Yeah, and I certainly see something like that happening because we saw it with Jordynne Grace.
Yeah, and before that with Mickie James.
Mickie James. So yes, I can see things like that. What I'm saying is you're not going to see them. You're not ultimately a top WWE star is going to eliminate them.
Sure.
And that's where it's just like, so when they're like, we need Nick Nemeth versus Cody, I just don't see that happening. Especially while Cody is champion.
That was more of just trying to put a punctuation on what it could be. Like, again, right now, or not right now, but recently, I mean, we've had AEW stars appear in New Japan. I mean, look, Jon Moxley's a former IWGP World Champion. The Young Bucks had their presence there. Obviously, Jay White, Will Ospreay, a lot of those guys came almost directly from New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they still enjoy a very strong relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Likewise, AEW's been working with Lucha Libre AAA and CMLL. So there is we're already seeing signs of AEW doing this, and not in official capacity, but just on a handshake agreement. This is a next level though, because this is the first time that I can remember. Like, look, TNA Wrestling is not the number 2 wrestling promotion in the United States. I don't even know if AEW is the number 2 wrestling promotion in the United States. It's probably New Japan Pro Wrestling. But with that being said, this is the first time we've seen a company as big as TNA Wrestling get a working relationship with the WWE in any kind of capacity.
Yeah, that's not true.
When was the last time we saw something that was like an official capacity where they announced that the contracts have been signed, that talents are going to be on both, going back and forth between the different programs?
Official capacity?
Yeah.
Probably when Smoky Mountain was announced as a developmental territory, but unofficially, ECW.
Sure. And how crazy was that when it happened?
It was a working relationship that benefited the WWE more, but I still think this benefits the WWE more than people want to give it credit for. But right now, I do think it's great. And another thing too that people don't realize, this also might help Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah. Well, look, they're more or less working with Noah right now. It's very incestuous, the world of pro wrestling, because Pro Wrestling Noah has been using a ton of talents from Lucha Libre AAA. In fact, Daga and what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. Anyways, doesn't matter. A lot of talents have left AAA to go compete full time in Pro Wrestling Noah. Pro Wrestling Noah has had a handful of WWE superstars appear on their programming. Most recently, Osmos, is that how you say it? Osmos has won the Pro Almost.
Yeah, OMOS.
Yeah, he recently won the Pro Wrestling Noah Tag Team Championship with a partner from Pro Wrestling Noah. So, could this be like some sort of new alliance that's similar to what AEW is doing? Sure, but this is. Remember when Kenny Omega was the TNA World Champion and the AEW World Champion, and he came in and did a few appearances for TNA Wrestling, and it popped the crowd, and it did good numbers, and then he left, and the numbers went back to where they were. This has that same kind of potential to pop those numbers, but if it's a working agreement, I feel like that keeps TNA a little bit more relevant. And and with Nick Nemeth being their world champion, look, Ethan Page won the NXT title his first month being in the company. Ethan Page is a former TNA guy. If Ethan Page went over to challenge Nick Nemeth for the TNA World Championship, would that not be kind of a big deal? If Oba Femi, I think he just won the NXT title. If he went and challenge Nick Nemeth to a title unification bout, would that not be a big deal? I think this is this is the first time that it's been official, that it's not just a handshake agreement. It's not, this is our developmental. We are entering a working relationship with our competition to promote their talents on our programming and our talents on their programming. I do think it's win-win, because at some point, when the whole purpose of NXT is develop the next stars, right? And eventually a lot of these guys that you're watching on NXT are going to get kicked up to the main roster. That means that there's going to be a void of stars on that NXT program. And I think it'd be really nice if you could just slide a Joe Hendry in there, or a Frankie Kazarian, or a Nick Nemeth, or a Moose, guys who have established star power from TNA Wrestling, to kind of fill that gap while you're waiting for your next developmental guy to be ready to be the guy before getting promoted to the main roster. I think it's a win-win. You're right. I think it hugely benefits the WWE, but I also think it hugely benefits TNA in the fact that they're relevant. They're extremely relevant, and this could help them land a better TV deal. This could help them get more eyeballs on the product. There's people out there who love the WWE and only watch the WWE, but now, Obafemi's going to be wrestling Moose in TNA. I'm going to go turn that on. I mean, I don't hate it for either party.
If TNA knows how to capitalize, they can get something more out of this, yes.
Sure.
And I think they probably do. And if Destination America, is that the former Spike TV?
No, Spike is Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus? Okay. Destination America has got slightly better penetration than whatever the station they're on now that the Owl owns. But it's they have ability now to use this to their advantage that they can. But I really believe now, thinking about it, the only promotion who has ever had a working agreement with the WWE that came out better was probably the NWA.
Yeah, that's way to bring it all the way around, Shane. Good
Yeah,
job.
that's what I was waiting the chance to do.
We are hit that 2-hour mark. Do you guys want to take time to talk about Power, or should we call it a night?
Let's call it a night. Yes? No? DK? You're the
deciding vote, DK. What do you want to
do? Well, Jay said something interesting earlier about not being a
he
bad
must talk about
episode,
neither, apparently.
So let's see how quickly we can run through it.
Okay. Jaden, if you want to bail, you're more than welcome to, brother. I know you've had a long day, so we can keep going.
No, I'll stay on. I just never want to talk about Power.
All right. So let's first I got to see if I kept the banners up. First and foremost, we had I don't have all the banners. I have this. So on this week's Power, we had some tag team wrestling. We had some women's wrestling. The show started off, if my memory serves me, we had my memory isn't serving me. DK, what match started off this week?
Silas and Mr. Grimm.
Silas and Mr. Grimm. Now, I thought this was a really good match, and you could maybe talk me out of it, but I thought this was a fun match because Mr. Grimm is a guy who's had two title opportunities. He challenged Max for the TV title, and I believe he had a shot at Mims's national championship. Now, I could be mistaken, and if I'm wrong, letters and retractions. But I feel like there's a lot there with Grimm's, and I think he could be part of the ever-growing dynamic of the NWA, and I think he has a lot of potential. But he doesn't need to have a victory over Silas Mason, and Silas Mason desperately needs to have some wins and losses, no losses, more wins, to become that guy that we've all kind of wanted him to be, which is a number one contender for the 10 pounds of gold. And so a matchup like this, was it perfect? No. Grimm's kind of showed a little bit where he was green. I think Silas Mason was trying to do too much power on a guy that big. But mostly this was a smash mouth match, and I enjoyed it. What did you think about it, DKM?
It was mostly good. My only complaint was Grimm's probably got a little more offense than I thought he should have. I thought early with Throwbilly dominating was pretty good, but I probably would have only given him one brief offensive flurry, and then let Silas pin him. Silas beat him clean. He took probably 65% of the match. No major complaints. You could see some greenness, but that happens. That's part of wrestling.
I thought it was a pretty good match. I thought it was enjoyable.
I didn't think it was bad. I just had that one small thing to me is I probably would have not given Grimm's as much offense.
Yeah.
But overall it's good.
What do you agree with me that Mr. Grimm's could have some potential with the NWA, that he could add something to them down the road?
Well, it's funny you're talking about how he had challenged Mims for the national title, and he kind of reminds me of Mims.
That's what I was thinking. Like, I kind of got, and it's not just because he's black, but I kind of got Willie Mack vibes from him, the way that he moves around the ring. Because Willie Mack's a big guy, but moves around kind of like a luchador. And then watching Grimm's in that ring, like, he was moving around very effortlessly. And I kind of did get the vibes of like a Willie Mack and kind of a Mims, with the fact that he had some strength to him too.
Yeah, and by Mims, I wasn't necessarily meaning in style, but in that, someone who's probably going to work enhancement for a little bit, but over time you might be able to, if he matures, you can bring some stuff out of him, and be able to use them. But again, let's remember, several stars in wrestling started out enhancement, and I've talked before about, you can find on YouTube Buzz Sawyer being enhancement in Georgia and Florida.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing enhancement, and I don't think there's
nothing.
And I kind of feel like that's the way that you should kind of come up, is, going and doing those jobs. With that being said, let's move to the next match. I think this was in a division that's so desperate in need of women's tag teams. I don't know why you'd put an end to the Caribbean Flow, the 5-star athlete. I'm blanking on names right now. Ruthie J. Thank you. Ruthie J. And La Rosa Negra taking on the Page sisters, who are affectionately known as Pretty Empowered. This, again, was kind of a weird match, too, because the dichotomy of the match, depending on where you're at, you're going to hear cheers for the Page sisters. You're going to hear them booed. In Tampa, I guess they are booed. And, the match itself was fine. Like, I don't feel like there was anything super offensive about it, but to me, it kind of felt like the entire time La Rosa Negra was kind of wrestling like a heel. Like, she didn't just, when she, like, poked the face of Kenzie Page, I felt like that was a real heel move. And she kind of laughed about it like a heel would. It wasn't like she was trying to get an advantage. It was just more like, I'm gonna cheat shot you here because I can. And I feel like, again, this was a good enough match. And if you were establishing a number one contender for the women's tag titles, again, wins and losses are important. So if the idea was that we're gonna see Kenzie Page and Kylie Page get pushed up to go challenge the It Girls for the tag titles, then this is it. This was a good opportunity for them. But again, there's so few women tag team in the NWA. I don't know why. Post match, Ruthie J blames La Rosa Negra for the loss, blames her for every loss, starts talking down to La Rosa Negra. La Rosa Negra doesn't handle that very well, and it seems like they had a cooling off moment. They blew some steam. They're going to be fine. And of course, when La Rosa Negra goes to exit the ring, Ruthie J attacks her, and pretty viciously. So that one is not that one's, there's no coming back from that. And they broke up what I thought was a pretty good tag team. And DK, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? And what do you think?
The match was low and okay. Mainly, it served its purpose of furthering some storylines. I didn't have a problem with them breaking up Caribbean Flow because they haven't done anything as tag team. We pointed out they lose almost every time they're in there. They have like 1 victory, 1 draw, and 5 losses, or 6 now. And so you might as well. They did, kind of swerve who was going to turn heel. They were looking at the Page sisters are faces in some of the territories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of made it look. They've already teased tension. They'd already teased tension between the two. It kind of looked like La Rosa Negra was going to be the one to turn heel, but they decided to go with Ruthie J. I mean, I can't say that I'm excited about a feud between the two, but maybe they can do something that will get one of them over, because they haven't really been successful at They weren't successful at getting them over as a team, and I don't know that they've been that successful about getting them over just in general.
When it comes to that women's TV title, both La Rosa Negra and and Ruthie J, I think, would make great challenges for the title. It just, again, seems kind of like it was just seemed out of nowhere. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. And
Real quick,
yeah.
if I could interject something. La Rosa Negra, Black Rose, she can get herself over if they just put some, give her some time. And she has star power and star ability. And I think if somebody's trying to make a star, she's a little on the older side, unfortunately, but she's got something that the NWA could possibly use. And if they knew how to use it, she could be the next maybe television and maybe even a future world champion, or at least a world champion challenger that they could build up.
I 100% agree with that.
Not only that, but Billy hates tag teams.
Billy does hate tag teams.
Yeah, that's pretty well established.
Then after this one, I'm trying to remember what match was next. DK, do you happen to know off the top of your head?
No, but so the next
was the next match the tag team between Talos and Daisy versus the Miserably Faithful?
It was.
So now again, I'm not the biggest Miserably Faithful fan. I've never really had a whole lot positive to say about either Judeus or Sal the Pal or even Gags the Gimp. I mean, obviously serviceable in the match, and if you're going to use them as cannon fodder, I get it. But I don't feel like they've ever used Judeus correctly since he's been in the NWA, and I think this was another example of that tonight. Now, I've convinced DKM, and I think Jaden too, that Daisy Kills could be something more than what he is right now. Him and Talos as a tag team is okay, but I'm more excited about the eventual Daisy Kill singles run and a future TV champion. This match was fine. It was harmless. It did give another victory for Kill and Talos, so potentially they can be challenging for the World Tag Team titles in the near future. But I thought it was an okay match. And again, nothing offensive here. DK, what was your thoughts?
First, I think it was at the beginning, it was the best they ever had Judeus look. And I'll give him some credit by shaving his head, growing the beard a little bit longer, and looked like he's been in the gym.
Yeah.
He did not look he didn't look soft like he's looked in the past. And so I thought he looked good. I thought his power stuff at the beginning, even where, Talos was having problems with him, I thought that looked really good. They kind of undid some of that, by the end of the match. Gags, I hope he lost his mask. It just, and it doesn't work in this type of thing either, this type of match. And that tongue, and making it sound like it was a big deal that he was going to unzip his mouth so his tongue could be released. Nobody gives a shit. So, I mean, it was important because Daisy Kill and Talos are the number one contenders to the World Tag Team Champions. They won whatever match, or I can't remember if it was a straight match or multi-part. So they are the number one contenders. They came in, they've beaten a team that they're supposed to beat, and so that worked well. I'm still not that into Talos, although I did think he looked better here than he's looked in some of the other matches. God, he still strikes me as so green. It doesn't seems like he's been around long enough that he shouldn't look as green as I think he does.
Yeah.
And what am I trying to say there? But anyway, yes, they from Daisy Kill, they haven't had him use the ukulele recently or do a song or be kind of just goofy silly. And I've said, this guy has a look, he's got a build, I think if he channels his charisma, personality right, he does have some charisma. Don't know that it's always been used correctly. Yeah, I mean, I think he got something. This is somebody who I would say the goal in the next 6 months would be to put the TV title on him.
Yeah, and our boy Matt just said that in the chat too. Yeah,
well then, he's right. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. I think he's somebody who within 6 months, they might put the World Tag Team title on Daisy Kill and Talos. I don't know that I object to it strenuously, but I don't necessarily want to see it. But I would like to, within the next 6 months, see the TV title on him. And I think that would, I think he should be, and I think he should be a Pope-style TV champion, even as a heel.
Yeah.
I think right now his personality works better as a heel. And
I would say that I would like him to be the next TV champ, because I would like a good face to win the TV title. I don't really want to see Carson Drake and Daisy Kill battle for the belt. I'd rather see.
No, I want Carson Drake to drop the title ASAP. He won't, because that's what I want. But yes, I would agree. A strong babyface guy needs to win the title, and then you need to get that onto like Daisy Kill. What was next? I don't know what the next match was.
So the next match, we should also talk about the promos. I feel like Mims and G's are really kind of coming into their own as a unit now. G's played a pretty interesting role in getting Tyrus into that world title picture. And I mean, for the promos, right? Like, I really liked when G's was cutting those promos with Tyrus. And I kind of feel like that's the only thing I liked about Tyrus was those G's promos. I feel like we're kind of getting back to that with Black G's and Mims, where I feel like, this isn't just a manager. This isn't Austin Idol managing somebody. I feel like there's a partnership here. I feel like there's a bond here. And I feel like this could be good for Mims, for once they have something for Mims that I'm on board with. So I guess that was a pretty good promo. It was about him and Burchill, and how they've already beat Burchill once, and why do they have to wrestle him again? And Burchill was just like, hey, I deserve another chance. I've been all over the world. I didn't really care about Burchill, to be honest, in this promo, but I thought Mims and G's were pretty good on the mic for this one. DK, your thoughts?
Yeah, G's is good for Mims for a couple different reasons. And sorry the way this sounds, but it's going to be the truth. But G's being short helps Mims.
Yep.
Because when they're standing there together, Mims looks big and tall. Yeah. And so we know he is big as far as a big strong boy type thing. But he looked good in the outfit he was in. He looked, how he had his hair look good. He looked heel. G's, of course, looked heel. G's can talk quiet but get excitable, whereas Mims was able to be kind of the more stoic.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so, this is the first time where I could look at Mims in a while and take him seriously.
Yes.
Now they need to get him some clean wins over Enhancement.
Yes.
And some good screw job wins over some upper talent. I don't mind screw job win. I don't mind G's hitting them with the collection plate. That has place in wrestling. And so get him some good screw job wins over some, good mid-card talent. Get him some good wins over some clean wins over some enhancement talent, low-card talent. And, my frustration is that they've never used Mims the way I think he's capable of being used.
Yeah.
So this interview was like the first thing that's pointed me to somebody that's like, okay, I can get into this. This is a good look for them.
Yeah. Did I lose you? What's going on?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, so I agreed. Then the next up, we had the Mike Mondo promo, and I think this was a little bit of ring rust, a little bit of jitters. It wasn't the best promo, but you could tell he was super excited about it. And I would have liked to see, more from Mike Mondo. I don't think he's had his first match yet, unless I'm mistaken. But I
think he did it one of the.
Oh, that's right. He wrestled Boz. That's right. He wrestled Boz. I still think there's a ton of potential in Mike Mondo in the NWA, and I can't wait to see what's next for Mike Mondo in the NWA. So with that being said, yeah, I'm ready to go with this one.
Yeah, my only issue here was kind of the reverse of what we talked about. He looks thick. He looks powerful. Probably needed to put a little more bass in his voice.
Yeah.
When he talked. But standing there next to Kyle Davis, you kind of saw how short he was.
Yeah.
And it's like, not that you can't have a short wrestler, who can do something. But there was like a conflict with what my eyes were seeing. Because my eyes were seeing this big, thick, muscled guy who looked like if I went and stood next to him, he's probably around my eyes. I mean, honestly, I don't know. But the look is, when you're watching this, is I could go stand next to him and use his head as an armrest.
Yeah.
And so that's Mondo's fine. Yeah, so he's my height. And I'm not that tall. Although I'm amazed at the number of people I am taller than.
Yeah.
No over metal. And so what was next?
So then after that, we get the encounter of La Pescadita taking on Holly Hood. It was Haley J versus Lily. And again, I mean, I know they were being silly with this match, but this is, to me, again, this was what the NWA needs to do more of. You have La Pescadita, who is Billy kept saying she's one of the standouts from NWA Chicago. She's not a known commodity for the NWA, so they didn't have to bring her in as a superstar. They were able to bring her in, and she's a wrestler. And they built her up, and she had a few moments in the match. I get it, they're just being silly and whatnot, but I feel like this was, again, another good way to help pad the resume of Holly Hood Haley J. She gets a victory. It was a mostly clean victory. There was some heel tenacity in it, but at the end of the day, it was mostly a baby face versus a heel with the storyline of they're just trying to wrestle, and the winner of the match is just that step closer to the Burt. So I was okay with this match in terms of like wins and losses and how they matter. Like, yeah, that she needs to get some wins before she gets another shot at Kenzie Page, or needs to get another victory before she can wrestle Big Mama for the TV title. And so I felt like they did it. I feel like they put it what I've been asking for them to do. So I was happy with the result of this match. It wasn't the best match, right? It wasn't the best showing of Holly Hood Haley J. She did look like she outclassed La Pescadita. But I think that's important too, because La Pescadita, she's a rookie. For all intents and purposes, she's not supposed to be here yet. She's getting an opportunity because she's working for Billy's Chicago. So I was good with it. DK, what did you think about it?
This is going to be one of those depends questions.
All right, let's hear it.
I understand that they're building up Haley J because she has had a title match and maybe whatever. But is she actually sticking around the NWA? Because I haven't heard about whether she's been at any of the other recent previous live events, and of course this was filmed back in October, so it's one of those things with TV tape. It's going to be around a lot longer than they're actually around, and so it's like if she's going to be like a wrestler for the NWA, I think this was good. If she's not going to be a regular wrestler for the NWA, I don't necessarily mind that she won, but I would have wanted the little fish to look better.
That's fair. I don't know, to be quite honest, what Hollywood Haley J's availability is with the NWA or where she's going to be next. I know that she's still very much a part of the Women of Wrestling, and I know that she still works OVW, so I don't think that it would be much of a stretch for her to continue with the NWA. Like, I don't think she's been signed somewhere else, but I honestly don't know. So yeah, perhaps that's she could be leaving. I just don't know. But I thought it was a good match, and I guess that's a good fair point that you bring up. If at the end of the day she does not come back to an NWA match, it's like, well, what was the point of that then?
You see, and this is where some of their taping things get lost on me.
Yeah.
Because I think we know this was filmed, but I think this is being shown. Well, maybe I don't know.
I think our friend Gary Horn said on the Discord that this was in between. This was these matches were partially filmed before Saul win, and some of the matches were filmed after Saul win.
I don't remember them doing anything. I know they did supposedly about 12 hours of taping at Saul or before Saul win.
Okay.
And I know we haven't seen that much.
No.
What have they shown? See, I'm just lost. Have they shown the Kenzie Page Haley J match? Was that the last premium live event that they showed?
I'm not sure. Let me go to Cage Match and double check real quick.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Are they building her for the title match, or is this after the title match? And because, well, I just don't know. And so that's just where my thing is. I'm a little bit confused. And so
Kenzie and Haley have not had a one-on-one match yet on TV.
On TV. Okay. So I'm assuming that's probably the next set of tapes, the next live event.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the next live event was supposed to be who was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be I might have it right here on the screen. I don't know why I'm trying to figure it out. I might have it right here.
Because this isn't the cage match, right?
No, for Looks That Kill. Okay, yeah, you're right. Looks That Kill is Kenzie Page versus Hollywood Haley J. Yeah, so you are correct on that one.
And we haven't gotten there yet.
No, not yet. Because the cage match is this one.
Right. And there's something else that happens at that event. That's what's throwing me off. Okay. All right. I know where we are then. Okay. So yes, they're still building her. So she did need the win. Again, if she's not sticking around, I still would have had the little fish look better, but either way, it's going to work. Match's okay.
Yeah.
Slime balls and fixers. What do you think of that?
So they're trying hard to make me like the slime balls. I'm not. I feel like I think his name is Sage, the smaller one. He reminds me of this guy that used to wrestle in Southern California named Johnny Yuma. It's so weird how much he reminds me of Johnny Yuma. The group, the pair is attacked. Huh?
Maybe they're related.
The pairing is, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about them as a tag team. They had a pretty fun match with Wrecking Ball Legursky and Jay Bradley, the Fixers. Like, I thought it was a pretty good match. They did some good storytelling. Like the bigger of the two from Slime Balls did a drop kick off the top rope, which was pretty fascinating because he's a bigger guy, but he still is much smaller in comparison to Legursky and Bradley. So it was kind of interesting to see that dichotomy there. And of course, when Sage was in the ring, he looked very defenseless against the Behemoths, even though he did get in some pretty decent offense. This was an interesting match. I kind of wish there wasn't the outside interference. In fact, I feel like this match would have been 100% better if we'd have just had a clean victory one way or the other. But you have Carson Drake come out, and they do this weird finish where they call it a disqualification match because Carson Drake touched Sage from the Slime Balls first. And I think what's problematic about that is, like, if he struck them, I could see why he would get disqualified, but he literally just grabbed his hand and pulled him out. Now, when the referee, as soon as there was contact, the referee turned around and had him ring the bell. So, I mean, he kind of, the benefit of the doubt, you think the heel's there to cheat. And in Carson, when he did grab his hand, it did kind of look like he was doing some sort of arm wringer to get him out of the ring. Maybe the referee thought that the arm wringer was some sort of submission hold. I have no idea what they're trying to play up with it. But your face says everything, DK.
Yep. It was just not my thing.
I didn't hate the match. I hate the way it ended.
Yeah. This is a good example of where you can have a good match or decent match. I mean, it was what it was. But, good little TV match and just totally F it over by the ending because now you don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So what was mostly a pretty good night for the NWA, I think the finish to that match kind of ruined it. And honestly, like, that was it for me. I know in the chat that they had said that they didn't like the end of La Rosa Negra and Ruthie J and how that happened, but I'm fine with it. I thought it was a good show. I think I would have kept Ruthie J and La Rosa Negra together as a tag team, but hopefully they're going to go.
If they had ever been, you talk about 50-50 booking, if they'd been booked 50-50, I would agree. But they were just so useless as a tag team. There was no credibility in them anymore. You can't.
Well, that's true, but I think that could be changed too with some good storytelling. Like, oh man, we got wrecked. Like, hey Jazz, what can we do to be a better tag team? And even just that little backstage segment with talking to a former NWA Women's World Champion.
Okay,
and then
I got to stop you right there. Did
Sure.
you hear what you said?
No.
You said with some good booking.
Sure. Yeah. Fair. I concede my point, sir.
So, look, their women's division's a little bit unstable. Somebody brought up in the chat earlier, and I'm not going to look it up, so sorry whoever said it. They're bringing in the bird girls.
The Flybirds.
Flybirds?
I think that's what they're calling them.
No, that's not it. I don't remember what it is.
Birds.
Money Birds. Okay. So they're bringing in the Money Birds, and I suppose the Money Birds will be the next tag team champions of sorts.
Sure.
And, kind of go with there. That's really old school booking in some territories. Yeah, bring in a team, let them win the championships, hold it for a while, lose championships, and then send them on their way. And I know people have asked about the King Bees. They're not teaming together anymore outside the NWA, and I think that's part of the reason why they took titles off of them also.
Yeah, I don't even think they're in the NWA anymore.
No, they're not. From what I've gathered, they're not, and I've gathered part of the reason they're not is because they're not a team anymore. And so I think they had their run, and then when the run was done, they were ready to go pursue solo careers.
Sure.
And so I don't think that was an NWA thing. I think that's just the way the wrestling world works sometimes.
Yeah, 100%.
And, you know, we kind of saw that when Law of Rebellion split too. And at first it was supposed to be a good split, then it was a bad split, and then it was a work split. And then
well, so their whole thing was it was just one of them was continuing to wrestle in the Crash, and Bastia decided to stay with Crash, and Mecha Wolf wanted to go with Lucha Libre AAA. He had the opportunity to go to Lucha Libre AAA, so he took it. I can't blame him for that either. Like, that's a smart business decision, but it just made more sense for Bastia to stay, you know, close to home, and he was still getting a lot of dates both in Southern California, and in Tijuana, Baja California. So it made sense for him. But for Mecha Wolf, I mean, he was getting opportunities everywhere, and that just the NWA didn't have something for him. You know, it just weren't using him. So
you never blame anybody for moving forward. In Texas, I know Charity King's held. He's currently a champion somewhere. I don't remember where. The other one I think has held some singles titles here in Texas, and I don't think they were ever necessarily wanting to be tag team wrestlers. I think it was something that for their career at the time, it was a good thing to do. And it was, but they weren't, you know, Rock and Roll Express, Fantastics, Midnight Express, you know, whatever, where they were going to be a long-term tag team. I don't think for them that was ever the plan.
Yeah.
That happens to some great tag teams too. Don't forget the Eliminators really didn't like each other.
That's true.
Well, yeah, and one especially didn't like the other. And
yeah, they actually started off decently, but that was one of the ones I think that over time they started not to get along as well as before, and they had different career ambitions too. Sometimes that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
And, you know, and look, a lot of famous tag teams are like famous bands. A lot of them get along enough to work together, but not outside of that. And, you know, and
Rocky Johnson and Tony Ellis.
Yeah. But I mean, and, you know, like in, you know, bands, everybody thinks about Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, and Paul Stanley doesn't really like Gene Simmons, and he's not been shy in saying that. But he admits that when they work together and, you know, we're doing music together, that they could be stars, and they had a habit of teaming up against the other band members. And so, but they didn't even. Well, Hawk and Animal were always professional with each other. Animal did have problems with some of Hawk's demons, so to speak, but they were never. Again, they were never great close friends. The Rock and Roll Express were never great close friends. You know.
I do know that we're running out of time. We're running extra late tonight, so I kind of want to wrap it up. I know I want to hear some updates from Jane, but real quick, I would feel bad if we didn't at least mention that this weekend on the NWA YouTube channel, there will be some NWA action, as the live event from Exodus Pro will again be broadcasting live on the NWA YouTube channel. I'm not sure exactly what time, so you'll have to just check that out for yourself. But Richard Holiday returns to Exodus Pro, teaming with TNT. I think that's the team name. I'm not super familiar with them. They'll be defending against Cal Hero, or they'll be wrestling against Cal Hero and Major League. In the women's wrestling action, we'll have Tiffany Nieves defending her Exodus Pro Championship against Kylie Page. Could that be a sign of the times? We also have the television championship on the line when Carson Drake with Aaron Stevens takes on Lord Crew. These guys were tag team partners at the first Saw win, and now they're battling each other. And then also one of the I guess this is the main event for the night. We are going to have the NWA Midwest champion Pretty Boy Smooth taking on Dante Casanova. Dante Casanova was my pick to win the title in the original tournament. And if the plans are to elevate Pretty Boy Smooth to the main roster, the power roster, this might be the time for Dante Casanova to win that title. So that should be a fun action for this week. Of course, you could see that on NWA's YouTube channel this Saturday. I'm not sure exactly what time, so you'll have to do the research on your own. And with that being said, Jayden, you want to do some plugs, my friend?
Just letting you know that we do have the events coming up. Nothing new, unfortunately. I was hoping to be able to announce something, but it looks like it didn't fall through. But we are working on some stuff. I can tell you that the February 15th is going to be at Monmouth University. You're going to see former WWE superstar Enzo Amore. You're going to see Brian Johnson from Ring of Honor. You're going to see Fallah Bahh from Impact TNA Wrestling. You're going to see Tank Tolan from the WWE, plus the stars of Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. Vinny the Fixer will be on the card. So will Dave Dahl and Dylan Mesh, the Dog Tag Team Champions. Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators Heavyweight Champion Breaker Morant will be there. The World Wrestling Grand Prix Champion David Goldie will be there. And you'll also see Nick Batti, and kind of the Flag Boy, and a lot of all the top stars, and Dave Dahl of Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. Then you'll also have the 17th of April. I'm sorry, no, the 15th of March will be part of the Nerd Force Fan Fest. It's a convention for nerd-based items like the Marvel, like DC, like comic books, like video games, like cosplay, and other things like that. And Dog will have a table there. We're also going to have a battle where some people are going to go battle against wrestlers from Dog in a promo off. So they'll cut a couple promos, and then the best promo will have to go against promo against one of the wrestlers from Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. So that's kind of cool that we're having that going on. Then there is Rowan University on April 17th. That's going to have Donovan Dijak from WWE and currently MLW. It's going to have Rekamo Ligursky from the NWA. Notorious Mimi. She was an NXT superstar. She works with the Monster Factory right now. Tank Tolan, of course, will be there. Alex Kane will be there from MLW. And of course, the wrestlers of Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, Dave Dahl, Dylan Mesh, Vinny the Fixer, Breaker Morant, Nick Batti, David Goldie will be there, the World Wrestling Grand Prix champion, if he still holds it by that point. And I'm really looking forward to the match with Valerie Verman defending the World Wrestling Grand Prix Women's Championship against Notorious Mimi. I think that's going to be a really, really good match. I look forward to that. It's going to grab a lot of interest on YouTube for sure, and a lot of negative comments that we'll have to delete, especially from you, DKM. And then after that, a couple days later, we're going to be at the South Jersey Geek Fest, and we're going to have a live wrestling event all day from about 10 a.m., 11 a.m., somewhere starting there till about 4 or 5 p.m. So we're going to be there, part of that. We don't do shows, Devin Dallin. We do events. Unfortunately, it's at Rowan University in the pit. In Rowan University, it's going to use those two events are sold events, so they're exclusive to the Monmouth University and Rowan University. We're still working on something for the Rowan College of Burlington County too. That's also a sold event. But the
The where?
Max Force. I messed up. I messed up like 3 things together. I was going to say like the South Jersey Geek Fest, the Nerd Force Geek Fest, and the Max Sports Center all got conflated into some kind of word. But that's going to be the wrestling convention. I'm sorry, the South Jersey Geek Fest is going to be in Westville, New Jersey. And it's at the building there. I forget the name of the building off the top of my head, but I'll make sure we have it posted and stuff with information. If you follow the dog on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, X, we'll have all the information on there if you want to come. And we're still working on something to returning to the Sacred Heart Church, but waiting to hear back on to get those confirmed. Oh, and we're working on a big fair convention too, a big state fair type of thing, but that's still in the works, and we have a lot to get through to get that one because of the amount of paperwork and logistics is going to be very insanely difficult. So there's a lot going on.
NWA got the Coke, dog brings the biscuits.
Dog biscuits?
I guess. I don't know. The ladies, Valerie Verman and.
Oh, gotcha. I was thinking of the okay. Anyway, taste the biscuits.
Oh my god, that video is the best ever.
I love that one.
That's gonna do it for us, guys. We went way long, and I'm sure I'm gonna hear about it when I get downstairs. So until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Good night now. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.